This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, you know, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. Another dramatic day in politics, and in the last few minutes, the Prime Minister has made it clear that he will not block Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, becoming the candidate, at least in Makersfield, which is a fascinating, going to be a fascinating by-election. We're going to hear from a Reform MP a bit later on who says they're fighting it, and they're fighting to win. Look at the numbers, actually. 8 Makersfield wards in the council elections voted last week, and over 50% went to Reform. I'll speak to 2 Labour MPs and 1 Reform MP in this show. It's a packed political show. We'll have the best analysis for you as well of every single thing that's happening. It's been a dramatic day. The Health Secretary has resigned. Andy Burnham has made clear that he's going to resign as Mayor of Greater Manchester to stand in the Makersfield by-election. We'll get all the detail on all of that, and we'll also hear, I mean, it was even this morning at 6 o'clock this morning when I woke up that Angela Rayner said she'd been cleared by HMRC. I think that's a bit strong when she says she's been cleared. What she's done is she's paid back the £40,000 she should have paid in the first place, but she could run too. But I think if Andy Burnham wins, well, I don't think she runs. I think she goes on a joint ticket and becomes Deputy Prime Minister again. There's so much to talk about. Also, another really important bit about this is YouGov today. A poll says 49% of Labour voters say the government offers little to no change from the Tories. And what really struck me last night was a call from Dave who said, look, it doesn't really matter to me who Angela Rayner is or who West Streeting is or who runs what or who becomes Prime Minister. My life just hasn't got better in the next 2 years. So does it actually matter, or are they all the same? Or are there parties, maybe the Greens, Reform, Lib Dems, whoever it is, you think could do a better job? Whatever your view on this, on the soap opera stuff, but also the big stuff and also the little stuff, the day-to-day stuff that absolutely has an impact on your life. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp, either a text or a voice note. Keep them to less than a minute, please. We'll get as many on as we can. Or, of course, you can ring me on the main number, 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss here on the Evening Exchange, so stay with me here on Talk. Well, what a day. It started with Angela Rayner speaking to ITV News, saying that she, in her opinion anyway, had done nothing wrong on her taxes. Now, my information is that she was told a few weeks ago that actually HMRC had cleared her, and in fact it may even have been before Christmas that she paid the £40,000 back. She's been making a load of money, making speeches in various different places and around the world, so she has the cash. She's paid that back. HMRC have said no further fines will be levied. She says she's cleared. I think cleared is a strong word. I think what has happened is that HMRC have said, right, you've paid back the money, you shouldn't have done it, but we're going to leave it there, which is very interesting. So let's see what Angela Rayner said about her tax affairs to ITV News. This came out this morning.
Can you just tell me what the decision was from HMRC as you understand it?
Well, I welcome HMRC's conclusion and they've said that there wasn't any wrongdoing and that I didn't try to avoid paying tax, or I wasn't careless in the way in which I conducted myself. At the time when I was in government and this came to my attention that there could have been tax owed, I was really shocked about that, because I'd taken advice and I've never wanted to avoid paying my tax. And for me, that was the most distressing thing, is that people felt that I was tax dodging or trying to set up trusts to avoid tax, or being careless by not taking the appropriate advice. And HMRC have concluded that isn't the case.
Jeff Norcott, who is a comedian, who's a friend of mine, a fellow presenter, he presents on Times Radio and I contribute to his show. He said, look, if Angela Rayner can make HMRC do its job and get its finger out, maybe she should be Prime Minister. Well, that was a question, not about that, but she was also asked, do you want to be Prime Minister, by Paul Brand of ITV News. This is what she said. Would you like to lead that team? Would you want to be Prime Minister?
I want to deliver as part of the team. And I've always said that it is a team effort. It's not one person, it's not a presidential situation. We all have to pull together to deliver that.
But would you want to lead the team? Because the team does have to have a leader. Would you want to be leader?
We do have to have a leader, and we've got a leader, and I'm not going to go into hypotheticals, but...
So you're not ruling out potentially taking over as leader?
But I have said that we have to do better, and we have to drive forward that change. I did that in government. I was very successful. I brought in the Employment Rights Act. They said we couldn't do it in 100 days. We did. We had our detractors from it, and we still delivered it. We're talking in the abstract, though, really, aren't we? We're not getting to the nub of what's really going on right now in the Labour Party, which is that you're split down the middle. Some people say the Prime Minister should go. Some say he should stay. You're not really telling me what you think. No, what's happening in the Labour Party at the moment is we've just had a severe beating off the electorate, and our ministers, our cabinet members, our Prime Minister and our members and our voters are saying things have to change.
And some people say change the leader.
Well, some people are saying that. But what I'm saying is the delivery of what we promised the electorate is the most important thing that we need to be concentrating on at the moment.
So no leadership challenge?
I want us to pull together.
Well, no clear line from Angela Rayner there. She wasn't saying whether she's running or not. Interestingly, Wes Streeting then resigns, the Health Secretary and the key challenger to Keir Starmer, but he hasn't said, the Health Secretary hasn't said that he has 81 backers and that he is challenging the Prime Minister. He simply resigns. He's written to the Prime Minister saying, having lost confidence in your leadership, I've concluded it would be dishonourable and unprincipled to remain in post. He's also talked quite a lot about Reform UK, and we're talking to a Reform UK MP a little bit later on in the programme. Wes Streeting says a dangerous English nationalism represented by Nigel Farage and Reform UK has come up because of these local elections. This represents, in Wes Streeting's opinion, both an existential threat to the future integrity of the United Kingdom, but Reform UK also represent a threat to the values and ideals that have made this country great. I wonder what you think about that. He says, where we need vision, we have a vacuum. Where we need direction, we have drift. This was underscored by your speech on Monday. Remember Starmer's dreadful speech on Monday. Leaders take responsibility, but too often that has meant other people falling on their swords. You need to listen to your colleagues, including backbenchers, and the heavy-handed approach to dissenting voices diminishes our politics. It is now clear that you will not lead the Labour Party into the next general election, and that Labour MPs and Labour unions want the debate about what comes next to be a battle of ideas, not of personalities or petty factionalism. In his reply, the Prime Minister said he was truly sorry to see that Wes Streeting would not be at the Cabinet table helping to transform our National Health Service. Bridget Phillipson is the Education Secretary. She is one of the few loyal Cabinet Ministers left ready to go out on the airwaves and defend the Prime Minister. This is what she said to the BBC earlier today.
The Prime Minister has my full support, and I'm really sorry to see Wes go. He has been a brilliant Health Secretary. He's done a fantastic job, and we see that today with the NHS waiting list numbers that are really encouraging and what people want to see. But I fundamentally disagree with the position he's taken. I'm sad that he's gone, but I think this is now a chance for us to pause, take a breath as a party, and try and draw a line under all of this.
So that is Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary. And then, as the day went on, more drama when Andy Burnham, who's the Mayor of Greater Manchester, says he's going to stand in the Makerfield by-election. The reason there's a by-election in Makerfield is that a Labour MP called Josh Simons, who was involved in a big scandal recently where he was head of an organisation called Labour Together before he became an MP, and he gave money to a firm called APCO, who then did a lot of digging and made smears against various journalists, including for the Sunday Times, including Gabriel Pogrund, who is one of the best journalists in the country because he was writing things that Josh Simons didn't like. Anyway, Josh Simons then resigned from his role a few weeks ago. He is now standing down as the MP for Makerfield. So up pops Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester. He says he's requesting the permission of the Labour Party to stand in the Makerfield by-election. And we know in the last few minutes that the Prime Minister has said he's not going to block that. Remember the last time Andy Burnham tried to stand in Gorton and Denton in that by-election, which was run by the Green Party, Hannah Spencer, he was told, no, sorry, you can't run by the National Executive Committee of Labour. Andy Burnham put a lengthy statement out. He said, I grew up in this area of Makerfield. I've lived here for 25 years. I care deeply about it and its people. I know they've been let down by national politics. He's talked a bit about what he's done as Mayor of Greater Manchester. Talking about justice for the Hillsborough families. He said, for example, as one of his big achievements, he says, I do not take a single vote for granted and will work hard to regain the trust of people in the Makerfield constituency, many of whom have long supported our party but lost faith in recent times. We will change Labour for the better and make it a party you can believe in again, says Andy Burnham. Well, if you're going to stand in a by-election, you want to be pretty sure if you're Mayor of Greater Manchester and you want to be an MP and then perhaps Prime Minister, you want to be pretty sure you're on solid ground. There is a majority for Labour, for Josh Simons, of about 6,000. But that was 2 years ago. Look at what happened last week. 8 Makerfield wards voted last week. The results were Reform 50.4% and Labour 22.7%. Now, even if you put together, and we're getting a bit technical here, Labour 22.7% and the Greens 10.9%. You still only get 33%. Put the Lib Dems on again. If everybody and the others as well, there's only another 5%. So you still don't beat Reform because you've got the Conservatives in there as well. So that's going to be an absolutely box office by-election. I'm going to speak to Andrew Rossendale, the Reform UK MP, a little bit later on, who'll be in the studio and will tell me that he thinks Reform UK can win it, as do some of the most connected and most intelligent political people I've been speaking to in the last hour or so. My phone's been buzzing. I've had lots of different calls with lots of different people. Right then, Bill Esterson is with me. He is the Labour MP for Sefton. Bill, thank you for joining me again. You kept your promise. You said a few nights ago that you would come back on when there were developments, and I really appreciate you doing so. What a dramatic day. What happens now, and what's the position of the Prime Minister?
Well, Peter, nice to see you again. And yes, I mean, the other day I said that I thought it was very difficult to see how the Prime Minister could turn it round. And I was waiting to see what he said yesterday in his speech in the chamber. And I'm afraid he didn't manage to convince me. And I think that's true of a lot of my colleagues. I think his position is unsustainable. And I think that what has to happen at some stage, preferably sooner rather than later, is that he announces the process for the election of a new leader of the Labour Party and therefore a Prime Minister. And my view is we should have the widest possible contest. And I think you've just been discussing one element of that in that Andy Burnham, if he is able to win a by-election, would be available for the members of the Labour Party to vote for him.
So, Bill, you've changed your position since we last spoke. You're now pretty clear that the Prime Minister has to go. Is that a fair characterisation?
Yes, it is. It's sad it's come to this because I backed him, and I think the way he turned the Labour Party round to enable us to win a general election was remarkable. I think most people thought that was impossible to do, not least with a very large majority. And I think it is a great shame that we have reached a point where people just don't feel in the country, and this is about the country, I think he should go in the national interest. The people in the country don't feel that he is delivering for them. And when you get to that point, I think there is an inevitability about it. It is completely unsustainable for him to stay and let him go.
Do you mourn the loss of Wes Streeting as Health Secretary?
I think Wes has done a good job, and I talked about this the other day. I think we have delivered, but people aren't feeling it. And one of the places where we have delivered is in improving the health service, and we have to continue to do that as a party and as a government, and that is a collective responsibility, just as it is to improve people's living standards and to ensure people feel safe in their communities and from the very serious threats that we face internationally, and those are the key priorities.
Andy Burnham has said, I do not take a single vote for granted and will work hard to regain the trust of people in the Makerfield constituency. But I know already, I can tell a lot of my viewers and listeners will see it as pretty arrogant of Andy Burnham to say, right, there's a by-election, we're going to subvert democracy here, we're going to stand in the by-election, he's going to be the candidate, stitch up, then he perhaps becomes Prime Minister. What do you think of what has happened with Andy Burnham today and Josh Simon standing down?
I think Andy Burnham is an immense talent. He is a very successful politician in Greater Manchester. He's got vast experience. I think the Labour Party is stronger for having him playing a role. Now, what that role is another matter. I think we would be very wise to learn from the successes he's had in Greater Manchester as part of a wider Labour team on transport, in housing, in the economy. And we have the fastest growing economy of any city region in the G7. I think I surprised you with that figure.
You did, yeah.
As I recall, it would be very sensible of us to look at what Andy has done and learn from it and apply it nationally. And that's true of a number of places around the country where Labour is delivering.
But it's going to be tricky.
I think that just sure. 1 minute. I think that is probably more important than whether Andy comes back to Westminster in the near future. But look, it's his choice to put his name forward, and it's a matter for the National Executive Committee as to whether he should be allowed to put his name forward. Then it will be a matter for the members in Makerfield who they want to choose as their candidate, and ultimately the voters of.
I mean, now all those things are absolutely true, and I'm not taking anything away from what you've just said. But Keir Starmer saying I'm not going to block Andy Burnham from running in the Makerfield by-election. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, those people will probably fall into line. The people who may not fall into line are the voters of Makerfield, and certainly at the last election it was won by Josh Simons on a reasonable majority, nothing to be sniffed at. But 8 Makerfield wards voted last Thursday, this day last week. Reform got 50.4% of the vote. Labour got 22.7% of the vote. That's only 8 wards, so it's not everything. But certainly this is an uphill struggle. Is this too big a risk for the Labour Party and Andy Burnham? It could be incredibly embarrassing for the Labour Party if he loses.
He's taking a risk. There's no question about that. If he goes for this seat, but actually that's true of any seat, given how badly Labour has performed in the local elections in England recently, and indeed in the Scottish and Welsh Assembly elections too.
Yeah, and I mean, you always take a risk there, but I mean, Reform UK are obviously going to throw the kitchen sink at that. Angela Rayner came out today. I think the timing is probably no coincidence here, and indeed for a few weeks she appears to have known that she's essentially in the clear with HMRC. Does she row in behind Andy Burnham or run herself? What do you think happens?
I think you'll have to ask Ange that question, but
I'm interested in what you think.
Look, I don't know is the answer to your question. Right. So you have to ask Ange. But look, we want the best available field for the Labour Party membership to vote for. If Andy can get there and convince the voters to make you feel that he's one of them, so be it. I think he's clearly very popular and has got a good chance of winning a vote amongst Labour Party members if he can first win it amongst Makerfield. Whether that's true of Ange, who is available as a Member of Parliament and has been cleared by HMRC, that's another question. But let's see. I want to wait and see what the various contenders have to say. And of course, for that to happen, there has to be a leadership contest.
Yeah.
And we go back to the start of the conversation. I think the Prime Minister has to initiate that. And I think collectively, I'll just go back to something I said to you the other day. I think collectively, we need to recognise that we have to rebuild trust. We have to demonstrate some confidence in ourselves that we are doing things that are making a difference to people's lives, that they're perhaps so far they're not feeling. The workplace rights, the rights for people who live in rented accommodation, the action we've taken on reducing the number of small boat crossings. These are all significant benefits of a Labour government, as is the reduction in NHS.
There's still a lot more to do, particularly on small boats.
We have to get that across, and we've got to take people with us.
And who's the best person to get that across? You've made it clear you think Keir Starmer should go. If you wave a magic wand, again, I'll ask you the same question. Wave a magic wand. Can't be Keir Starmer because you said he should go. Can't be Bill Esterson. Who would be leader of the Labour Party?
You keep ruling me out, Pete. You did that the other day.
I used to be a special advisor, you know. I could maybe come and run your campaign, Bill. No, seriously, who do you think should? Just a different party. Tell me about. Tell me who you think should.
What would you advise me? But no, we've got too many people watching.
I think 81 names. I think talk to a lot of people, see what they think. But seriously, Bill, who do you think should be leader of the Labour Party?
I think there is merit in a number of people who whose names are being discussed at the moment, and I want to hear more about what they've got to say. So when I'm ready to decide, just as I did in telling you when I thought it was time for the Prime Minister to go, I'll make sure you're one of the first to know.
That's really helpful. That's really good, Bill, and very good of you. Thank you very much, Bill. Good to talk to you again. Fascinating times. Bill Esterson there, Labour MP for Sefton. We'll talk to another Labour MP, an even stronger critic of the Prime Minister, Graham Stringer, the Labour MP for Blake Lane, Middleton South. He's standing by, and we'll talk to him in just a second. We'll take your calls, text, tweets and voice notes as well. What do you think? And on the debate desk this evening, we have a Conservative councillor, newly elected, Elliot Keck, and a Liberal Democrat activist, Matthew Hulbert. And we'll be speaking to Reform UK MP later in the show. Big political show tonight. So much to discuss. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
The offer to be the voice of a sheep.
Yes, you can only dream, really.
Kelly Riley and Cole Hauser. How much of Rip does your husband in real life have about him?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's a man.
He's a dude. Kirsty and Phil.
Can we talk about one other thing?
We can talk about loads of things. It's an interview.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who has been in touch. Chrissy in Spain says, I don't think Starmer blocking Burnham because he knows after recent elections he's little or no chance of winning. Loving your show. Mike in Lincoln says, should it not be pointed out to the Labour MPs who say Starmer turned the party around and won us a huge majority that in fact the Conservatives are responsible for the Labour victory and it has nothing to do with Starmer in any way, shape or form. Interesting as well, another political story that we're going to talk about in the debate desk in a few minutes' time is that Zach Polanski said to the Mayor of Hackney, you've got my vote. But Zach Polanski didn't vote in the council elections and indeed wasn't even registered to vote in the council elections. That's a story the Times has this evening. Another interesting point about Makerfield, because there are 8 Makerfield wards that voted in last week's council elections and over 50% of the vote went to Reform UK. But this has been pointed out that Keir Starmer of course, is not on the ballot there. Burnham won 62% in the 2024 mayoral election, so maybe he's more popular there than people think he is. But that's 2 years ago, and there's a lot happening within all of that. Yule in Ballymena has said, Peter, I know Talk is supporting reform. We're not. But now all of our solicitors are, not all our solicitors are. Some balance would be appreciated. Yule. Thank you for your message. I do not support Reform UK. In fact, I am completely politically homeless, and it took me a long time to work out who I was going to vote for at last week's council elections in my part of London. I also want to make it absolutely clear that I'm speaking to, I've spoken to one Labour MP. I'm about to speak to another one, Yule, in a second, with Graham Stringer's hopefully coming on the line in a second. We're going to hear as well from a Liberal Democrat activist this evening. We're going to hear from a Conservative activist this evening. He's a councillor, in fact. And we're going to be talking to a Reform UK MP. So I want there to be balance. I want there to be a range of views. I think probably it's fair to say that the majority of Talk viewers and listeners are Reform supporters. That's just my general kind of understanding of where things are. But as a former Conservative myself, as someone who was in the Conservative Party for 3.5 years, a bit longer actually, and is now politically homeless, I want the truth. I just want to hear what everybody has to say. So you'll really appreciate your listening to the station and texting in and letting me know your thoughts. But what I would say is I can't speak for other stations, I can't speak for other presenters, but I am someone who is, as I say, politically homeless, and I want to hear everybody's view, and then we can all make up our minds together, even if we have different things to say. And as I often say, we can disagree without being disagreeable. So there's quite a lot in this as well. When you look at Josh Simons as he stood down in Makerfield in that constituency where there'll now be a by-election, his majority was 5,399 on about a 52% turnout. But Reform UK came second there. They got 12,800 votes, so that was about 5,500 behind Josh Simons, obviously. He has stood down as well. So it's really interesting sort of seeing what's happening in all of this and all the different issues that are going on. Another issue that's happening at the moment is within Reform UK, actually, because there is a parliamentary standards inquiry into Nigel Farage. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on with Andrew Rossendale, the Reform UK MP. And I just want to play a clip now, actually, of Nigel Farage being interviewed by my colleague Harry Cole about that. So let's have a look at that.
But frankly, it was given as a reward for campaigning for Brexit for 27 years.
And it had no impact on your decision to come back into public life?
No.
But he who pays the piper picks the tune.
Hang on a second. I can't be bought by anybody.
Yeah? Look down that camera and say, I can't
be bought by anybody.
Anyone.
No, not anyone. Not even Elon Musk. Do you know what people in Clacton say? Good luck to you, mate.
Yeah? They don't care.
No one cares. They care if you're a crook.
Yeah.
Which I'm not and never have been.
We'll talk more about that story later on. We've had a couple of connection issues, but we now have Graham Stringer, the MP for Blakely and Middleton South. Graham, thank you for joining me this evening. Where do you think things stand right now, especially when it comes to Andy Burnham possibly standing in a by-election? He might win, he might not. It looks, depending on the data you look at, it could go in perhaps either direction. Angela Rayner saying she's been cleared. I think that's too strong a word, but anyway, her HMRC affair is over. And Wes Streeting resigns. What a day.
Yeah, it's every day seems to be like this at the moment.
Yes.
Sort of 3 front-page splashes sort of every single day. As far as the deal that Josh and Andy have done, I'm extremely disappointed with that. Josh was elected for the first time 2 years ago. Walking away from the electorate there, I think, is a mistake. He just gives politics a bad name. There's no hint when Josh stood that he would walk away. I think it's much more serious with Andy. Andy has been elected 3 times as the Mayor of Greater Manchester. He's popular. He said it was the best job in the world and he wanted to stay the full time. So what they have done, they've made a Labour seat in Wigan vulnerable to Reform, Greens, anybody else who wants to take it on. And from my point of view as a Greater Manchester MP, they've also exposed the morality to an attack by Reform and, again, anybody else who wants to take it on. I think that leads to disillusion in politics. People in...
Is this taking the electorate for granted, Graham?
That's putting more concisive than I was. It is.
Okay, I mean, that's... I just wonder whether the electorate will be happy enough in Makerfield to do essentially what they're told. By the way, we brought in this guy who said he was going to be there for 5 years. He's leaving after less than 2. We don't know what deal he's done with Andy Burnham, but something's happened. Andy Burnham is now standing. There's a by-election. You will now vote for him because he might be the Prime Minister. The electorate never likes being told what to do, and my sense is, from an analytical point of view, I'm not a supporter of Reform UK, but, I mean, I just think a lot of people will say, stuff you, I'm voting for someone else.
That is possible. There have been examples of that, one from ancient history. When the Labour government was elected in 1964, they decided they wanted to get a seat for somebody. They wanted to be Foreign Secretary, called Patrick Gordon Walker. And the people of Birmingham Smethwick said, no, we're not having it. And in one of the nastiest by-elections ever recorded, they wouldn't have it. When Roy Jenkins went to the European Commission and left the seat vacant, what had been a solid Labour seat went to the Conservatives. But you're absolutely right. The electorate do not like being manipulated and taken for granted.
You're a Greater Manchester MP. Are you going to knock doors in Makerfield and say vote for Andy Burnham?
Oh, I've campaigned in most of the by-elections in the north of England in my life. I would find it difficult to know what to say to people on the doorstep if they say, Andy and Josh have both abandoned us. One is the mayor. I wouldn't have an answer to that. So at the moment, I think my answer to that is no, because I don't support the decision those 2 friends have taken. It's fine enough for Josh to risk his own career and Andy to risk his own career, but to risk the Labour Party's representation in those 2 areas, I think is irresponsible.
Fascinating. Graham, thank you. Graham Stringer MP, Labour MP for Blakely and Middleton South. He says that he would find it hard to know what to say to people on the doorstep. He also says that the electorate essentially is being taken for granted. That is strong criticism of his party leadership. What you think is fascinating on this as well. Leslie says if Burnham plays dirty and throws out insults about Reform and their voters, they will lose the by-election in Makerfield. We're going to speak to Reform UK a little bit later on. Robin Burnley says, as red as Labour thinks Wigan is, I should say actually the Makerfield constituency, you may or may not be familiar with it, but it was formed in 1983, parts of the Wigan, Lee and Ince constituencies. So it's Andy Burnham was the MP for Lee previously, not in 1983, not as far back as that, but it's certainly his area, and he said in his statement today, I grew up in this area, I've lived here for 25 years. So Rob says, as red as Labour think Wigan is, or was until last week, how can they think allowing an elected MP, Josh Simons, to stand down for no other reason than to give Andy Burnham a route to Downing Street is an acceptable process in a democratic society? Also, what is in it for Josh Simons? Worth a curious journalist time, perhaps? Well, I think there'll be lots of questions being asked about that, and I would imagine the best journalist in this country, Gabriel Pogren, who was wronged very badly by Josh Simons, will be looking into this as a matter of urgency. Has he been promised a seat in the Lords? Has he been promised some sort of directorship or deal if Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister? It's a very interesting one there. Joe Moore from Loughborough says, my prediction is Miliband, sadly. Scorched earth policies for the Labour Party now, knowing they're a busted flush, digital ID, net zero, all intentionally economic stink bombs, says Joe. And lots more messages coming in. We're going to go to the debate desk a little bit later than usual because we have those two MPs, but I will be very interested to see the Conservative and Lib Dem thoughts on this. The Conservative councillor just elected last Thursday, Elliot Keck, and the Lib Dem activist Matthew Hulbert will be with us. I want to hear from you as well. Whatever you think on this, whatever you think of what those two MPs said, whatever your view is on this, I would argue slight subversion of democracy, actually saying, well, this guy can stand down, this guy can come in and then he'll be Prime Minister. Not too happy about that myself, I must say. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Pick up the phone, make the call, and we'll get you on as soon as we can. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, a little bit later than usual, but we're on the debate desk, and I'm delighted to say that Matthew Hulbert is here, Lib Dem activist. Lovely to see you. How are you doing?
Very well, Peter. Lovely to see you on this busy day.
Busy day. We love a bit of political drama.
We do.
Hashtag drama. And Elliot Keck, or more accurately, Councillor Elliot Keck, who's just been elected for the Conservatives. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Helped by the fact that Lib Dems didn't manage to field a full slate of candidates in Hyde Park, which made a big difference.
One of the few remaining Conservative councillors. Well done there.
Oh, well, we've got 32 in Westminster.
The debate has started already. We're merely moments into the debate desk. Let's talk about a party that neither of you is a member of, and that's Labour. Where are things? How do you see today? What has happened, Elliot?
I mean, they always say that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. I think it is quite literally repeating itself right now. I mean, the echoes are quite extraordinary. We have a Prime Minister elected on a massive majority who, within a couple of years, is facing a massive cabinet revolt, massive backbencher revolt. Of course, Keir Starmer was much more unpopular than Boris Johnson ever was at his peak of unpopularity back in 2022. And then, of course, we've got discussions about who's going to take over and the possibility that we may have a sort of Liz Truss-style figure, a Wes Streeting that may come in and immediately face the wrath of backbenchers and be kicked out and, you know, replaced with another person a few months down the line. And then, of course, we've also got the other issue that the other contender, Andy Burnham, is likely to take the Liz Truss approach to the economy of just spend and ignore the bond markets, which could also pose serious peril. So it's going to be a really, really tough time for the next couple of years. I think the country's just going to limp towards the next general election, and hopefully we can get this Labour lot out.
Matthew, your thoughts on today?
So it's a bit, you know, chaotic, isn't it? To say the very least. And so on health matters, I met with Wes Streeting a couple of weeks ago with fellow health campaigners. We think we're probably the last formal meeting that he had with a patient representative group. And towards the end of that meeting, I said to him, well, we'll keep putting pressure on you, Secretary of State, or your successor, depending on what happens over the next few weeks. And he and his staff had a big belly laugh at this suggestion from me. Well, there you go. I think I was quite right. He's gone. But it doesn't look like he's got the numbers to stand himself, and so it's interesting. I think he's done the right thing. I think if you have no confidence in the Prime Minister, you can't carry on, which makes me then ask the question, where's Shabana Mahmood's resignation? She apparently went in, didn't she, a couple of days ago to Keir Starmer.
Maybe she still thinks he will resign.
Does she?
Well,
it's clearly not going.
But maybe he thinks that.
But don't you think it's upon her now and others to resign? If they no longer have confidence in this Prime Minister, how can they remain in their high offices? Surely they can't.
So here's what I think happens. I think that Andy Burnham will be the candidate in this by-election. And I think it could go either way. We're going to speak to Reform UK a little bit later on, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on the by-election as well, especially when you look at the numbers. So in the mayoral election, Andy Burnham got 62% in that constituency. When you look at the election in 2024, obviously 5,399 majority for Josh Simons, but in the last few days you've got over 50% Reform in the 8 wards. Now, there are only 8 wards, but 8 wards, council wards, that were up for grabs. So if he becomes MP, I think he gets a coronation. I think that Starmer says, I see the writing on the wall, you got Andy Burnham there, he makes him something like Foreign Secretary, Angela Rayner comes back as Deputy Prime Minister, Wes Streeting is in as Chancellor, something like that. There's some sort of deal to be done here, I think. What do you think, Elliot?
I think that's certainly the picture that Andy Burnham envisages. That's the future that he envisages, and I think you're right. If he does get his seat, I think that's probably the most likely scenario. But I have to say, there's a whiff of the Icarus about it, isn't it? I mean, yes, he is clearly a popular mayor of Manchester, but the point at which he won that vote, the point at which Labour won that seat was 2024, when the Labour Party was broadly popular. A huge amount has changed then. The biggest lesson you can give to anybody hoping to stand for a seat in Parliament or council, and I speak, you know, someone that just stood as council, is never assume your personal vote is that big. Don't get so cocky, don't get so arrogant, don't get so full of yourself that you think that if you just knock on enough doors, if you're popular enough, if you communicate well enough, you can buck the trend.
And he's got a very mixed record.
Very few people do.
Right, he's got a very mixed record. I mean, he stood twice before to be Labour leader and wasn't successful either times, including against Jeremy Corbyn.
That's right.
I think he had
and Ed Miliband.
And Ed Miliband. I mean,
the bacon sandwich wielding assassin.
I think he had a fairly mixed record in the government jobs that he had.
He wasn't a great health secretary.
No,
I do not. For one of the few times I totally agree with you, Matthew. I do not. I do not buy into this mystique about Andy Burnham that he's somehow Jesus. I just don't get it.
And what about the voters of that constituency who have voted in their member of Parliament? Whatever they think of Labour now, you vote in your member of Parliament for the full term.
5 years.
He's a new MP as well. I mean, he only got elected.
His career kind of.
Yeah, fine, fair enough.
But that was his own fault.
That was his own fault. But also, you know, he is their MP, and now he is saying, never mind constituents that you voted me in, I'm off now, and the reason that I'm off now is because I want this guy to come in, and you will vote for him, won't you? I mean, it's...
and never mind the fact that the residents of Manchester voted for Burnham to serve a 4-year term as
well.
And he's now clearly saying that actually this was all just a stepping stone for me to, sorry to mix my metaphors, for me to climb the greasy pole a little bit higher to the top job. So, listen, maybe it comes off, but I think there's a good chance that he actually loses and it all crashes and burns.
Will the Greens, do you think, make an effort in this constituency, or will they say, let's let Burnham stand?
What about the Conservatives who say, hold on a second, you know, Reform UK are doing really well, we probably can't win this seat, but if we take our foot off the gas slightly, maybe Reform will win, and that will give a bloody nose to Andy Burnham, stop him becoming Prime Minister, perhaps.
Conservatives as a national party, we have to stand in every seat possible. I think so I think we will stand candidate there.
I'm sure it's not a candidate, but do you...
fine. I mean, that's different. I mean,
do you take the foot off the gas?
Possibly not. As for the Greens, listen, I think if you're trying to replace the Labour Party and if you're the Green Party, you want to cause as much chaos as possible. But at the same time, you want to be demonstrating that you have as much of a vote share as possible as well. So you can't be a national party without standing. So I think the Greens will go for it. I think they've got to go for every opportunity they can to keep up the momentum.
Just to Matthew's point as well, we've just had Graham Stringer, a Greater Manchester MP, says that he is probably not going to campaign for Andy Burnham. He has said he would find it hard to know what to say on the doorstep, particularly as Josh Simons, to your exact point, that Josh Simons has stood down. Andy Burnham said he'd stand for 4 years.
And is the campaign slogan, Peter, going to be vote for Burnham, get Starmer out? I mean, is that going to be the pitch of Andy? It effectively is, isn't it? I mean, whether he quite voices it like that, I don't know.
Yes, he doesn't want to be a backbencher. He doesn't want to sit there and say, yes, I'm going to vote for...
doesn't want to
stand
just
up
be...
for his constituency. He doesn't, you know, he's not there to be a constituency MP.
And doesn't want to just be in the cabinet, right?
Exactly.
Does he?
Yeah, I mean, Josh Simons said that he wants Andy Burnham to come home. I mean, let's be clear what coming home actually means. Coming home means going not just to Westminster, not to number 10. Andy Burnham is not going to be spending more than a second in his constituency post that election. He is going to be aiming straight for number 10, where he will spend, as every Prime Minister has to, almost every waking moment of his time in number 10.
So it depends, doesn't it, Elliot, quite how much the people of that constituency loathe Keir Starmer. Is that not the
I think that's key, and also how much, you know, how they view the Burnham's decision to essentially abandon Manchester in favour of Westminster.
Can I ask you about your party leaders, and I'll ask you about each other's party leaders as well. Maybe we could start with Kemi Badenoch. What sort of a day did she have yesterday, the last few days, in your view, Elliot?
I think she was formidable, like she has done many times in Parliament. She's cut to the heart of the issue. She's appealed to the country. We saw that with her comments in the budget last year. Obviously, we need to remember as Conservatives that there's a lot to politics outside of Parliament, and we need to obviously be doing the work well in Parliament, but also beyond. I have to say, in my election, Kemi Badenoch was coming up more and more and more during the election. And by the end of it, it was unanimously positive. Every single time I was going out, people were mentioning her. Okay. People were saying they were going to vote for us because of her.
Still lost, you know, over 500 councillors.
And there's a huge challenge to do.
And she was extremely enthusiastic and positive, but nonetheless, she had a tough night. And the Lib Dems had quite a good night, Matthew.
We did, but it could have been better. And I'm hearing, on the train down here, I heard from a very prominent city-based Liberal Democrat who is pulling their hair out, won't say which gender for the moment, pulling their hair out, the fact that the leadership has in effect abandoned cities to the Greens in terms of the progressive vote, when we used to run Newcastle and we used to run Gateshead and we used to run all of these places, but apparently Ed Davey has given up, and there's lots of anger in the Lib Dems tonight about that.
Yesterday, Ed Davey was talking about, in Parliament, said this was utterly surreal, what was happening with the Prime Minister. Was that... I mean, I thought it was a good point to make, actually, but is that good leadership from him, do you think?
I think it was. The whole thing yesterday was surreal, and I'm going to be fair, I thought Kemi Badenoch had a good day
Thank you.
yesterday, and I especially...
I am sure she appreciates that.
No, I'm sure she'll be thrilled with that. I especially liked her little tete-a-tete with Wes Streeting when he was sat on the front bench and having a
I like the Emily Thornbury one. That was the one that sort of...
That was good too.
Two divas, you know.
So she had a good day. Ed Davey, sadly, when he gets up to speak, almost everyone gets up to leave, which I think is a little bit unkind.
What did you think about Davey yesterday?
Listen, I think that...
I've been nice about your leader.
Listen,
he doesn't have to.
I mean, clearly Ed Davey has led a pretty impressive recovery of the Lib Dems. I mean, the number of councillors they've got is very impressive. The number of MPs that they've got is very impressive. I honestly couldn't tell you what they're all in politics for, or what their principles are, or what the serious policy platform is. I mean, there is actually a space for a genuinely liberal party in Parliament that believes in deregulation, doesn't believe in the nanny state, believes in getting government on people's back, believes in a smaller state. There's still all the socially liberal stuff. Instead, all I see is a party that just sort of says, spend a lot of money, but maybe in slightly different ways.
Also, here's a water slide.
Yeah, exactly. And I find that slightly infuriating. So
does that damage him, or does that actually help him, do you think, Matthew?
I think it was fine for the 2024 election, along with what I thought was a really good party broadcast about his caring responsibilities that I thought was effective. I think party members are sick to death of all the stunts now, however.
We have some breaking news, and that is that a student has died and 2 more are being treated after a new meningitis outbreak in Oxfordshire. The UK Health Security Agency is reporting that. They say the student who has died attended Henley College, according to their GP surgery. So that's breaking news that a student has died. 2 more are being treated after a new meningitis outbreak in Oxfordshire. If there's any development on that between now and 10 o'clock, we will of course bring it to you. There are a few other stories today that I want to talk to Matthew and Elliot about. I want to talk about Farage and his cash. I want to talk about the Scottish Greens donation scandal, and a magistrate challenging a working from home ruling because he's been dispensing justice from Portugal. Stay with us here on Talk.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I want to talk a little bit about Nigel Farage and the £5 million donation that has been given to him by a cryptocurrency entrepreneur. He was asked about this by my colleague Harry Cole on Never Mind the Ballots a little bit earlier on today. This is the clip.
But frankly, it was given as a reward for campaigning for Brexit for 27 years.
And it had no impact on your decision to come back into public life?
No.
But he who pays the piper picks the tune.
Hang on a second. Hang on a second. I can't be bought by anybody.
Yeah? Look down that camera and say, I
can't be bought by anybody.
Anyone.
No, not anyone. Not even Elon Musk. Do you know what people in Clacton say? Good luck to you, mate.
Yeah?
They
don't care.
No one cares. They care if you're a crook.
Yeah.
Which I'm not and never have been.
I am not a crook. Where have we heard that before? No, Nigel Farage denies any wrongdoing, and there's a parliamentary standards inquiry into him. What do you make of this, Matthew?
Well, I thought the money was for his security. Was that not?
That's what he says. Yeah.
Oh, but I thought he's just said so. It's a reward, but also for his security.
Yes.
No,
that's the line.
Didn't previously say the first bit, did they? We were just told it was for his security.
He says there's
very important. He faces lots of threats. This is for his security.
That's what he says.
But it was also like a prize for.
Well,
during,
I mean, if someone says
causing immense damage to the economy. And,
well, that's another matter. The point is, which I disagree with you on, but if we have. You know, he's saying, I campaigned for 27 years. This guy who's well off saw that I had a problem with my security and gave it to me as a reward. What's wrong with that?
There may or may not be anything wrong with that, but what this investigation is looking into, and we don't know what it'll say, so, you know, fine, but what it's looking into is whether or not it should have been declared and whether or not he was wrong to not do so.
And he wasn't an MP at the time. What do you think, Elliot?
I mean, it does seem like the line has shifted a bit, as mentioned, that it's gone from being about security to being a reward for his role. It could potentially be both. I mean, listen, it doesn't bother me particularly. I think there will be a lot of people on the street, though, that view it and view it with some suspicion. It doesn't. I mean, it looks a little bit like the freebie row that we had with Keir Starmer, politicians accepting vast amounts of money.
More.
Yeah,
except he wasn't a politician at the time. He was
a politician. Yeah, it's different. Keir Starmer was the Prime Minister when he was accepting or running being Prime Minister for a lot of those gifts. Listen, I think Nigel's unsuitability to office, though, is not based on whether he took a gift from a donation.
And we'll talk to Reform UK about this a little bit later on in the programme. Also, the Scottish Greens, new Green MSP, failing to explain where more than £1,100 of donations received for a visa have gone as well. What do you make of this?
I mean, it's absolutely absurd. I mean, the Green Party has gone from being a sort of fairly cuddly, broadly harmless environmental party to just being a sort of motley crew of crooks, racists and bedwetting activists. And, you know, I think the Parliament needs to...
They deny that.
Well, they would deny that, of course they would, but I think Parliament needs to legislate to ban this individual from the Scottish Parliament. He doesn't have a visa to be here, or not a visa that is going to last until the end of his time in Scottish Parliament. I think this should be a matter for Westminster to deal with.
I think the Greens have a significant problem, not in relation to this, although this person has obviously got questions to answer. But last week in the local elections, one set of results that didn't get enough mention as far as I'm concerned is that in Richmond-upon-Thames the Lib Dems took all 54 seats and we took 5 seats off the Greens, and I think that's because moderate Greens, you know, nice environmentalists that thought the Greens cared about that, do not like this eco-socialism of Zach Polanski, and so I think many people will be turned off.
Well, it's been mentioned now on Richmond. I actually didn't know that. Tell me just briefly your thoughts on this judge who is dispensing judgment from Portugal, Elliot.
I think it's really disgraceful, actually. I think, you know, listen, as a magistrate, he has the power to hand down criminal sentences. Now, in these cases, they can't be imprisonable sentences, but they are still criminal sentences, and we know what happens to people with criminal records. I think you should have the self-respect, if you're going to be doing that to somebody, to do it to their face in person. Just putting aside...
I didn't even know it could be done.
Well, exactly. Putting aside the sort of legal ramifications, and there are suggestions that actually it may not be legal since the rules have changed post-COVID, but I think, you know, as a magistrate, you should have the self-respect that you are dispensing justice, a tradition that goes back, you know, centuries and centuries, and yet you're
to actually be in the court. Matthew, quick word on this.
I think there are some jobs where you can work from home, and I'm in favour of that. I don't think being a magistrate is one of those.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Listen, thank you, both of you. Elliot Keck, newly minted Conservative councillor, and congratulations on that. Matthew Holbert, who has been a councillor for the Liberal Democrats. He's a political commentator. Lots to discuss on all of these topics. What do you make of what's going on? I will take some calls in the next hour. Sorry, we just haven't had time. Really busy hour, 7 o'clock hour. We're going to speak to Isabel Oakeshott in a second for her view on the Burnham, Starmer, Rayner, Streeting, Josh Simon's drama, which continues, and also on whether Reform UK could, in theory, take the seat of Makerfield in the sort of Wigan area. Lots to discuss on all of that. We're also going to talk about Nigel Farage and this row with him. We're going to speak to Andrew Rossendale in the studio, and many, many more guests between now and 10 o'clock to get a grip of this dramatic and very busy political day, but in between all those guests, I want to make sure that I speak to you and have time for those calls, and we will make time for that, loads of time actually, between now and 10 o'clock. So please do give me a shout. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Peter in Suffolk has sent me a WhatsApp saying, "Evening Peter, it will make my day if Burnham loses that by-election." I think quite a number of people may well feel the same way. Loads to discuss in the next hour, right up till 10 o'clock, so stay with us. 0344 499 1000.
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening on a dramatic day in politics. So much to discuss here on the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell and I'll take you through it all. And Isabel Oakshott will be with me in just a few minutes' time too, to give us all her thoughts on the dramatic developments of the day. We'll speak to Andrew Rossendale in studio, the Reform UK MP as well, because they think they can take Makerfield. They could have a major upset there, stand against Andy Burnham, who looks set to be standing there in a by-election because an MP has stood down. Josh Simons is his name, and see if Andy Burnham can become an MP, then conceivably leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister. This is a day when the Health Secretary has resigned. The former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner says she's in the clear and in theory could run too to be leader of the Labour Party. There's so much happening. We'll bring you all the details and talk about a few other stories as well. As always, I want your view on all of it. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell on socials, or Cardwell Peter actually on Instagram. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on the main number, or you can send me a WhatsApp voice note on the main number too, 0344 499 1000. So many comments coming in, so many people giving me the value of their judgment, and we will make sure we get as many calls, texts, tweets and voice notes on the show between now and 10 o'clock. So stay with us here on Talk. Well, even within the last hour, there's been some really interesting movement, and we've talked to Bill Esterson, the senior Labour backbencher. This is what he told me about an hour ago about this real drama that's going on in Labour. And of course, the country and people at home are affected by this because who the Prime Minister is a big, big issue. Let's see what Bill Esterson told me.
I think Andy Burnham is an immense talent. He is a very successful politician in Greater Manchester. He's got vast experience, and I think the Labour Party is stronger for having him playing a role. Now, what that role is another matter. I think we would be very wise to learn from the successes he's had in Greater Manchester as part of a wider Labour team on transport, in housing, in the economy. And we have the fastest growing economy of any city region in the G7. I think I surprised you with that figure.
You did, yeah.
As I recall, it would be very sensible of us to look at what Andy has done and learn from it and apply it nationally. And that's true of a number of places around the country where Labour is delivering.
But it's going to be tricky.
I think that just sure. 1 minute. I think that is probably more important than whether Andy comes back to Westminster in the near future. But look, it's his choice to put his name forward, and it's a matter for the National Executive Committee as to whether he should be allowed to put his name forward. Then it will be a matter for the members in Makerfield who they want to choose as their candidate, and ultimately the voters have.
Well, there could be a slight fly in the ointment for Labour because the Prime Minister has made it clear within the last hour or so that he's not going to block Andy Burnham becoming the candidate. So it's a process. The National Executive Committee of Labour says, OK, he can be a candidate. Then he goes to the membership in Makerfield. They say, yes, you're the candidate. Then they put him up for this by-election whenever it is. And it's up to the government to decide when that is, whether it's sooner rather than later. There's no Labour leadership election right now. But all of Andy Burnham's assumptions presuppose that he wins the seat. He has said in a statement this evening, I do not take a single vote for granted and will work hard to regain the trust of people in the Makerfield constituency. I spoke to Graham Stringer, another Labour MP a bit earlier on, who said that's taking voters for granted. And fascinatingly, we're in a situation where if we look at some of the numbers, 8 Makerfield wards that voted last week, well, of those wards that voted in the council elections, they voted 50.4% for Labour and 50.4% for Reform UK, apologies, and 23% for Labour. So it might not just be as straightforward as all of that. Isabel Oakeshott, our international editor, joins me now. Isabel, another dramatic day, and Makerfield will be on everybody's lips for the next while, but it might not just be quite as straightforward as Andy Burnham and many in Labour think.
Well, I can tell you tonight, Peter, that Reform are pretty excited about the prospect of contesting this seat. When you look at the numbers that Reform got in that constituency in the general election, I was just looking at them just now, it was a Labour seat and Labour held on to it. So Josh Simons got 18,202 votes. Who came second? Well, it was a Reform candidate, Robert Kenyon, who got 12,803 votes, and the Labour majority there is only 5,399. That in no shape or form is a safe Labour seat. And that Reform candidate, I mean, 12,800 votes was a really good performance. Given that election, 2024, was a snap election, people will remember, Reform had basically very few resources, and I don't recall the detail of that particular seat, but I think it's vanishingly unlikely that the party leadership put any extra resources into it. In other words, this guy, Robert Kenyon, the candidate, did incredibly well without anyone having to try very hard. Now, fast forward to where we are today. I'm sorry, I don't want to say he didn't try very hard. He probably did, but he didn't have like a massive campaign around him.
Yeah.
And fast forward to where we are today, Reform is tremendously well resourced, as I think everybody now knows. Reform is extremely experienced in running by-election campaigns and contesting them. And I think that the party leadership has every good reason to think that the party could give Andy Burnham a really good run for his money.
And even the most, as I mentioned earlier as well, even the bits of data that we have from the last week or so show that Reform UK are in a really strong position, not just in England more broadly, but particularly in that constituency. This is a huge risk for Andy Burnham, isn't it?
It is. It really is. I mean, I'm really quite surprised that this is the seat that they've gone for. I mean, I know it's sort of not far from his stamping ground or stomping ground, whatever you call it, but it really is high risk. You know, in the old world, maybe a seat of the two-party system, if you like, a seat of over, we used to regard a seat of over, as journalists, 5,000 majority as sort of semi-safe seat. But if you look at the last election, Reform, where Reform won MPs, they were overturning enormous majorities. I mean, looking at my partner Richard Tice, full disclosure, deputy leader of Reform, overturned the second safest Tory seat in the country.
And the by-election more recently as well, Sarah Pochin overturning, what was it, 14,000 majority in that constituency to win by 6 votes. I mean, that was another, I mean, there's been so many times when Reform UK, Richard Tice, Sarah Pochin and others as well, have overturned on many stories from last week as well, when they have managed to upset the apple cart to a huge degree, and that could well happen again in Makerfield.
Yeah, and I mean, what an extraordinary spectacle that will be. The other thing we don't know is when the so-called the writ will be moved. Now, this is a procedural thing, Peter, and you are better on that than I am. So please correct me if I've got this wrong. But I think that it's sort of in the gift. In the first instance, it's in the gift of the Labour Party whip to move the writ correctly, so which officially sort of starts the firing gun on a by-election. Now, they can actually sit around for a bit if they want to be vexatious, or they have other political reasons for doing so. And I have known this happen, and you'll remember a few examples too. I mean, they could sit around for a few weeks or even more than that. Now, if that happens, I think other parties can technically launch some kind of process to force the hand, but we're in quite unusual territory with that.
All of that's absolutely correct. And the other thing that parties can do is they can select their candidate. There doesn't have to be an election actually called, the writ doesn't have to be moved, there doesn't have to be a date of an election. They can simply say, right, we know there at some stage in the next few months there's going to be an election in Makerfield, therefore we are going to choose our candidates. And those candidates can start campaigning. Reform UK could start tomorrow. If they said, right, it's Robert Kenyon or whoever else they want to choose, they could start tomorrow and say, right, we're going to go through the process, select our candidate, he or she is going to go out there and start campaigning.
Let me tell you, they've already started. I mean, Reform is already all over this. You know, there's a team working on this already, and no time will be lost on this. So I think it's going to get really interesting. And I don't know, I'm going to just stop making predictions because, you know, I was thinking this evening, I haven't known a set of circumstances like this around a prime minister being forcibly or not quite ousted. But then in British politics, I feel like I've said that so many times in the last 10 years. Never seen anything like this.
Yeah, exactly. Unprecedented is a particularly overused word. There's definitely at least some consternation and annoyance at this stitch-up, and it is a stitch-up, from Labour MPs. I spoke to Graham Stringer, the Labour MP for Blakely and Middleton South, a little bit earlier on, and I asked him, just, I think a pretty reasonable question, said, will you be campaigning for Andy Burnham? This is what he said. You're a Greater Manchester MP. Are you going to knock doors in Makerfield and say vote for Andy Burnham?
I've campaigned in most of the by-elections in the north of England in my life. I would find it difficult to know what to say to people on the doorstep if they say, Andy and Josh have both abandoned us. One is the mayor. I wouldn't have an answer to that. So at the moment, I think my answer to that is no, because I don't support the decision those two friends have taken. It's fine enough for Josh to risk his own career or Andy to risk his own career, but to risk the Labour Party's representation in those two areas, I think is irresponsible.
I mean, Graham Stringer is not on the mainstream of Labour, but at the same time, he is someone who represents at least a thought that actually maybe this isn't the best idea. And he's saying that tonight on the day the decision has been made. Just sum up this dramatic day for us, Isabel, and then I have one more question about Nigel Farage for you. But just sum up this day. We've had these remarkable series of events. It started with Angela Rayner saying she's been cleared. I think the word cleared is doing quite a lot of work in that sentence, by HMRC. You've got Wes Streeting resigning. You've got Josh Simon saying he's standing down. Andy Burnham saying he wants to be the next MP for Makerfield. And Keir Starmer saying that he won't block Andy Burnham. This has been quite a dramatic day.
Absolute scenes, isn't it? It's absolute scenes at Westminster. Absolute maximum chaos. We love it as political journalists. It's not good for the country. I predict, the one thing I think I can safely predict is months of instability. Yes. And that is not good for our country at a very, very critical time.
Just before you go, let me ask you about Nigel Farage. He was asked by my colleague Harry Cole about this £5 million donation to him personally. Let's have a look at this clip and then we'll get Isabel's take on this.
But frankly, it was given as a reward for campaigning for Brexit for 27 years.
And it had no impact on your decision to come back into public life? No. But he who pays the piper picks the tune.
Hang on a second. I can't be bought by anybody.
Yeah? Look down that camera and say, I can't
be bought by anybody.
Anyone.
No, not anyone. Not even Elon Musk. See what people in Clacton say? Good luck to you, mate.
Yeah? They don't care.
No one cares. They care if you're a crook.
Yeah.
Which I'm not and never have been.
Does no one care, Isabel? There is a parliamentary standards inquiry into this.
Well, I think a lot of Westminster critics of Nigel Farage care, and that's why there's so much ratcheting up of the pressure for investigations and so on. But we can only deduce that ordinary voters don't care because Reform just won so many councillors, 1,400 and however many it was. You know, if this revelation had been so devastating, and if people up and down the country really thought that it meant that Nigel Farage was somehow corrupt, then I don't think that they would have voted for Reform in such numbers. I think it's a big distraction at this point. I think that was a fantastic interview that Harry did there. It was really watchable. But only today, Nigel Farage has had Guardian photographers snooping around his property. They managed to leave their press cards somehow. You know, look, it's not like having some terrorist outside your property, but it's really unpleasant. And that is your understanding end of the wedge.
Is your understanding that that Guardian photographer actually trespassed, or were they just in the road outside? Because that's legitimate journalistic activity, isn't it?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. Okay. And yes, it is legitimate activity, but none of us would like it. But, you know, look, I'm a journalist. I've stood outside plenty of houses. You're entitled to do that. Yeah. But it's not nice. The point is, this is all the time for Nigel Farage. It is all the time. He cannot go anywhere or do anything without security. And legitimate, reasonable journalists, whatever they're, even if they're from hard left-wing rabble-rousing papers, are the least of his worries. There are really serious threats against Nigel Farage on a pretty regular basis.
Isabel, thanks for all that analysis. Dramatic day in politics. Our international editor there, Isabel Oakeshott. Matt in Cheshire has given me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Matt, what's your take on the day? What do you think about what Labour have done?
I've just got a little poem that I wrote yesterday, Peter, on Keir Starmer.
Okay. We keep getting poems. This is about the third one in the last week or so. Go ahead, Matt.
It's only a short one. I have wrote a longer one. Your voice is uninspiring. Your circuits need rewiring. You did all the firing. Your time is now expiring.
That's excellent. I mean, is that about me or about Keir Starmer?
It's about Keir Starmer.
I mean, what do you make of this Makerfield by-election? Is this the policy to get Burnham back and make the King of the North the King of the UK?
I mean, this is like a dream for me. It's like everyone is going to fall all in a few months' time. Reform have just had a record-breaking electoral victory on the ticket. Vote Reform, get Starmer out, and Starmer is now toast. Labour are so stupid, they've now given Reform the chance to topple his successor before he's even been elected. So even if Burnham wins and becomes leader, he won't have a mandate, and he will be open to sort of endless calls for a snap general election.
It's going to be fascinating and dramatic times. Matt, thanks for your take on that. That's Matt in Cheshire there. Thanks also to Pete in Desborough, who says, good evening, Peter. Good evening, Pete. Personally, I believe that if there is a PM takeover bid, Keir Starmer has options. For me, if he cares about Labour and the electorate, he must call a general election. I say this because doing so will see him go down as the worst PM in history and give Labour a chance to go away, lick their wounds, reflect and rebuild. Failure to do so will see him replaced by an even worse politician and could bury Labour for generations to come. Graham should stand for Prime Minister, says Leslie, a great politician, and I don't support Labour. Hayley says, loving your show as always. Thank you, Hayley in Carshalton there. She says, well. They thought they were being clever, didn't they? Thinking they could get the rank and file to vote how they wanted them to. Good on Makerfield. This is just such a mess. Well done, Keir. You've lost your own party support and everyone knows exactly what is going on. I truly think this mess should lead to a general election, but I feel very bad for Fabulous Kemi. She deserves the best, but I don't think she will get the top job, unfortunately, says Hayley. Well, thank you for that. So many different aspects of this, and indeed one person, Melanie, says this is not politics, but I liked Matthew Hulbert's tie. It's amazing. What a smart man. So there we are. Lots to discuss. Andrew Rossendale, the Reform UK MP, in the studio next. Stay with us here on Talk.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks everybody for getting in touch, including Bob in Nottingham, who says, what is this with Andy Burnham and the bigging up of Manchester? I visited Manchester recently. It is a right tip. Drug addicts, homeless people everywhere. Piccadilly Gardens and absolute pits and dangerous. I found Manchester to be totally frightening. And in Chiswick, Robert's been in touch from West London. He says, it fascinates me the thought of how crazy Labour MPs would have gone if the same scenario had happened to let Boris Johnson in as Prime Minister. To me, this is as bad as Trump on the 6th of January. And I want Starmer out, says Robert in Chiswick. Well, we'll hear exactly what Reform UK thinks from one of their MPs. Andrew Rossendale is in the studio with me right now. He's the Reform MP for Romford. Good evening.
Good evening, Peter.
I just want to play you, Andrew, before I get into the questions to you, a clip from another MP. This is Graham Stringer, who spoke to me about an hour ago. He is the MP for Blakely and Middleton South. And I asked him straightforwardly, is he going to campaign for Andy Burnham in this Makerfield by-election? This is what he said. You're a Greater Manchester MP. Are you going to knock doors in Makerfield and say vote for Andy Burnham?
I've campaigned in most of the by-elections in the north of England in my life. I would find it difficult to know what to say to people on the doorstep if they say, Andy and Josh have both abandoned us. One is the mayor. I wouldn't have an answer to that. So at the moment, I think my answer to that is no, because I don't support the decision those two friends have taken. It's fine enough for Josh to risk his own career and Andy to risk his own career, but to risk the Labour Party's representation in those two areas, I think is irresponsible.
So, Andrew, at least one person in Labour not happy about this. I would imagine there are quite a few people in Reform UK cock a hoop, especially when you look at some of the different statistics from last week. 8 Makerfield wards in the council. Reform UK got 50.4%, Labour 22.7%. Tell me what's going to happen.
Well, it's another by-election, and it's a by-election this time I think Reform UK can win in Manchester. And frankly, I think we need to win it, because that would show that Labour is done. And the British people want Labour out. So if we win this one, we can seriously get rid of Keir Starmer and this Labour government. So we're going to fight it right the way through, and we're going to win that seat for Reform UK. And as you said, Peter, the election results of last week showed that Reform UK is already in the lead in that constituency, winning all of the wards and over 50% of the vote. So I think Andy Burnham is going to have a tough fight to win this seat. But I think that if the people of Makerfield want to get rid of Labour, the way they do it is to make sure that they elect a Reform UK MP.
Robert Kenyon was your candidate the last time. He lost out by about 5,000 votes. Is he going to be your candidate this time?
Oh, I think it's too early to make decisions like that. Clearly, there'll be a process to choose the best candidate for the constituency. And whoever it is, I'm going to campaign. Unlike my friend there who says he's not going to campaign for Labour, I will be out on the streets fighting for Reform UK.
Would Matt Goodwin be a good candidate? He didn't do as well as you thought he would in the Gorton and Denton by-election.
He'd be a superb candidate, but whether he wants to do yet another by-election so soon after another in Manchester, I really don't know. But I think there'll be plenty of people who would like to stand as the Reform UK candidate, and I fully expect them to be the next MP, whoever it is.
What do you make of what's happening in Labour at the moment? Your own party, of course, has had problems with people leaving and leadership problems and so on, as every party does, but it is very volatile in Labour at the moment. What's your sense of where it goes? And I'm sure you would oppose a Keir Starmer or a Wes Streeting or an Andy Burnham period of Prime Ministership in much the same terms. But what do you think actually happens?
I think Labour has completely lost all sense of its original purpose. I think Labour in government has proved to the British people that it not only has no vision for our country, it lacks competence. It lacks any concept of what's needed to resolve the issues, the very serious issues our country is facing. And I think, speaking to people in my own constituency during the local elections, lifelong Labour voters, none of whom are going to be voting Labour anytime soon again. And I think that the Labour Party now, frankly, it's unfit to be in government. The best solution really is for them to leave office, to have a general election and a new government, which I hope will be led by Nigel Farage.
You don't seriously believe that after less than 2 years there should be a general election, do you?
Depends if you believe that we're in politics to put country first or party first. Yes, they can cling on, just as maybe the last Conservative government clung on to office for perhaps too long. I think Labour is in danger of doing the same thing. 18 months into this Labour government, they're done already. It doesn't take much to work out that most people want Labour out. They want Starmer gone, and I think that people need and believe that the country needs change.
Do you think Reform UK are ready? Because you have a lot of newly elected councillors, and well done on your victories there, and nearly 1,500 new councillors for Reform UK. There are a lot of people just getting to grips, getting their email addresses, finding out what it is like to actually be a councillor, having not been a councillor previously. Are those people ready to run the country? You only have 8 MPs at the moment.
Peter, this is a national emergency in my view. The country is in a very bad way.
Don't you need experienced people to deal with the national emergency? Yes, you do.
We have experienced people. We have a lot of experienced people coming forward. We have a number
Not necessarily in political office, aren't
Well,
we?
actually, at the end of the day, if you remember when Tony Blair got elected, he'd never even been a minister. He went straight in as Prime Minister.
He'd been an MP for 14 years,
Nigel
15 years
Farage has got vast experience, knowledge,
I'm not arguing
contacts.
that point, but there are lots of other ministers, over 100 ministers.
He's going to build a great team, Nigel, and I think he's going to lead a great government. And it's a government that's going to put Britain first, and that's what the people want. They're tired of governments that are self-serving, looking after their own interests, collecting titles and honours and ministerial jobs, and then leaving office having achieved nothing. Reform UK is going to be different. The quicker we are in power and the quicker we can rescue this country from the calamity of this Labour government, the better.
You mentioned Nigel Farage there, and he's been speaking to my colleague Harry Cole. Just want to play a quick clip now of Harry's questions on the controversial £5 million donation which has led to Parliamentary Standards inquiry this week. This is what Harry asked Nigel Farage and what the leader of Reform UK responded.
But frankly, it was given as a reward for campaigning for Brexit for 27 years.
And it had no impact on your decision to come back into public life?
No.
But he who pays the piper picks the tune.
Hang on a second. I can't be bought by anybody.
Yeah? Look down that camera and say, I cannot
be bought by anybody.
Anyone.
No, not anyone. Not even Elon Musk. Do you know what people in Clacton say? Good luck to you, mate.
Yeah?
They don't care. No one cares. They care if you're a crook.
Yeah.
Which I'm not and never have been.
He says no one cares. I mean, people care enough, the parliamentary authorities care enough to have a parliamentary standards inquiry into this £5 million. It's highly unusual, isn't it?
There's a lot of muddling misunderstanding about political financing in this country. What the British people don't always appreciate is that there's no state funding for political parties. So all of us, all MPs, all political parties have to raise funds to get donations.
But that £5 million isn't going to pay for Nigel Farage's politics. It was a personal donation.
Well, yes, and if it's a personal donation and it's for his security, then that's absolutely right. I think it's an outrage, frankly. The real story here, Peter, is that you have a future Prime Minister, very likely, who is given pretty much no security from the British state. He is a security risk. He should have 24-hour security provided for him by the government, but they don't do it. He has to raise money himself to pay for his own security. That is a disgrace. After the murder of David Amess and Joe Cox, the fact that we have prominent politicians who are absolutely a security risk, yet they're not given the support and the protection they need, that is wrong.
But there are loads of people in the country, including many Reform UK supporters, who think, hold on a second, someone just gave him £5 million. I mean, that is a very rare and strange thing, is it not?
Well, as I explained earlier, we don't have state funding for political parties, so all political parties have to get money to campaign, and in this case it's for his personal protection.
Okay.
It's not the state paying for it, it's a donation. If it's a donation, what's corrupt about that?
Where are you going after this interview? Makerfield?
Not yet, but I expect I'll be dragooned to go there fairly soon. I'm looking forward to it because I think it'll be a Reform UK win. We'll get our 9th Member of Parliament.
It's hard to say when it will happen. Have you any sense or any instinct as to whether the government will want to do this quickly? They can basically, the procedure, the moving, that can happen pretty quickly, or they could leave it a little while as well, couldn't they?
Well, they have to have, I think, 6 weeks legally to call a by-election, because you have to go through certain procedures to get to that date. So they'd have to call it pretty quickly for it to be done for middle of July. So who knows? Let's see what happens. What I do know is that the campaign has already started. I think already that constituency is going to be bombarded with people campaigning of all political persuasions. What I would say, however, Peter, if the Conservative Party wants to do the right thing for the country and put country before party, they should not put up a candidate. They should withdraw a candidate from this by-election.
You and I both know they're not going to do that.
Because if you want to defeat the Labour Party, if you want to get rid of Keir Starmer...
On the numbers already, Reform could win.
They can.
And if the Greens put up a candidate as well, that's going to take votes away from Labour.
Wouldn't it be magnanimous? And wouldn't it be patriotic?
Wouldn't it be democracy
Conservative
if
Party
anybody can stand?
We won't be running. We're going to back
They're not going to do that.
Well, I think they should.
Okay. I mean, Kemi Badenoch says that she's doing well after these local elections. I'm not quite sure how she comes to that conclusion after losing 500 councillors. But they're not going to shy away from this, are they? I mean, you're not going to get your way.
Oh, probably not, because it's always party before country, and that's why one of the reasons I left, because you actually want a party in government that actually cares about Britain first, not about the best interests of a political institution, and that's where the Conservative Party has gone so wrong. So I do think they should seriously consider, in the national interest, not to field a candidate in this election. Let Reform have a free run. Let's get a Reform UK MP into Makerfield, and let's get rid of Keir Starmer, and let's chuck this Labour government out once and for all.
Mark and Selby agrees with you. He says, how nice of the Conservatives returned the favour to Reform and stood no candidate against Burnham. Labour have left themselves exposed by hubris or ignorance in gambling 2 positions to replace Starmer with another spectacled specimen of the best of the left, says Mark. Well, I want to thank the spectacled specimen, Andrew Rossendale, who's coming to the studio this evening. I expect you've quite your knuckles will be red raw by knocking all those doors in Makerfield. It'll be a fascinating and, I would imagine, dramatic by-election. Thanks for coming to the studio this evening. Really appreciate it. What do you make of what Andrew's saying there? What do you think the prospects are? 0344 499 1000. Get your call in and we'll have a good chat about it between now and 10. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, lots to discuss, and Wikipedia is something that Elisa in Chelmsford has brought up. She's messaged me to say that Reform UK is described as a far-right political party. She says that's wrong and shouldn't be on Wikipedia, and maybe I should have asked Andrew about it. I didn't see your message before. I would have asked him happily about that, and I don't think Reform UK are far-right. I've never thought that. In fact, they're becoming more and more mainstream in the opinions of so many people, including many of our viewers and listeners here. Certainly not far-right. They're not extremists. They're people who care about this country. And I may agree with some things that Reform UK say and disagree with others. That's fine. I don't think they're extremists by any stretch of the imagination. Thank you to someone who has messaged me in, Joanna in Salisbury. Hi, Joanna. She says, hi, Cardi P. Like a magician, while we were all busy watching all the intrigue and rubbing our hands, what are Starmer and Hermer doing while we're not watching them? Are they using the wrecking ball to do as much damage as they can before they are gone? Mark says, it's so insane in Demembry, and Miliband is looking to shut down all the oil and gas production in the North Sea. He should stop commercial fishing too, making more room for wind turbines and many, many angry French fishermen. Every cloud, perhaps. Thanks for the evening exchange, says Mark. That's great. Sean and Bister says, what happens if Annie Burnham loses to Reform? Will West Streeting come back again? Will Starmer be safe again? All those questions are ripe to discuss with Patrick Diamond, a former Labour policy advisor, now academic. Patrick, great to have you on the programme. I love your analysis of Labour. Where are we? I mean, what a day. What happens now?
Well, that is a very big question to pose at this point in the evening, Peter. Yeah, what an extraordinary day, what an extraordinary week. Events have been obviously moving at a rapid pace. I think where we go from here is unclear. One point I would make at the outset is that I think a couple of days ago, Keir Starmer's position was beginning to look extremely fragile.
Yep.
What I think is interesting about the course of events, particularly today, is that I think you can't rule out Starmer surviving.
I'm terribly sorry to interrupt you, Patrick. We got some breaking news, and that is that James Murray, who was the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, has been named the new Health Secretary. He's been promoted to that role. Apologies to interrupt you, but I just thought our viewers and listeners would want to know that. Please continue, Patrick.
Of course, and congratulations to James Murray on his elevation. But as I was just saying, I think you can't rule out Starmer now surviving for a considerably longer period of time than I think many people would have anticipated on Monday this week.
I think that's very fair. And just to give an update on that before my next question to you, Patrick, James Murray is the new Health Secretary, Lucy Rigby is the new Chief Secretary to the Treasury, and Rachel Blake is the Economic Secretary to the Treasury there as well. So there have been a few changes, but the main news, of course, is that James Murray is the new Health Secretary. He was Chief Secretary to the Treasury and seen as a bit of a Starmer loyalist as well. Patrick, it's really interesting what Sean and Bister was saying. You know, what happens if Andy Burnham loses to Reform? Look at the numbers, as I'm sure you have, and Reform did very well in the local council elections recently, although 2 years ago Andy Burnham got 62% of the vote in that constituency when he ran for Mayor of Greater Manchester. However you look at this, it's a big risk, and as you know far better than I do, the public often don't like being told this is what you will do.
Well, I think Sean makes a very reasonable point. When you look at the numbers of how the constituency voted in the local elections, obviously Reform's position looks strong. There's no question about that. Now, I think supporters of Andy Burnham would say he obviously has a very strong profile in that region. He's well known, he's thought of as somebody who is trying to deliver for his area, and he has, at the moment at least, a good reputation with voters, and perhaps that will be enough to counter the Reform tide. But I think if you're a Labour supporter, you absolutely should not take for granted in any way the notion that Andy Burnham would certainly win that seat. I think it will be clearly a very tight contest.
It will be very tight, and I mean, I've just been speaking to Andrew Rossendale there, who says they're going to throw everything at it from Reform UK's perspective. I just wonder, I mean, there are a lot of what-ifs. I think a lot of the what-ifs have been cleared away by Keir Starmer making clear that he has no objection to Andy Burnham becoming the candidate for Makerfield. But can you see a scenario where actually West Streeting doesn't stand to be leader of the Labour Party, and there's some sort of coronation of Burnham? What happens to other people as well? What's your analysis of Angela Rayner? There's so much going on at the moment, it's hard to know exactly where this is going. I just wonder, in a general sense, what your, not necessarily prediction is, because that's always difficult, but your sense of where it's going.
Yeah, I mean, predictions in the current environment are very dangerous. No doubt, Peter, you get me back on this programme in 2 months' time to tell me just how wrong I was.
We'll play the clip. We'll play the clip. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, I actually used to call myself the Professor Neil, what was his name, the guy during COVID, Neil Ferguson, of political prediction, because he always say this is definitely going to happen, and then it never did. And none of my political predictions ever work, apart from when I said that the Conservative Party was going to wake up in about a month's time and say, what on earth have we done appointing Liz Truss Prime Minister? And I was absolutely right with that one, but I'm not sure that makes me Mystic Meg. Sorry, Patrick, go ahead.
Well, indeed, it's a challenging task predicting British politics. But I think what we can read from today's events is that it's not clear necessarily that Wes Streeting's intention is to launch a direct bid for the leadership. What he seems to be attempting to do is clear the path towards a contest in which there would be a number of candidates, of which he may well not be one. And you can see a scenario emerging in which Wes Streeting lends his support to Andy Burnham but is not a candidate in the election, and presumably some deal is done between them whereby Streeting then receives a senior post in government. I mean, I would just say incidentally, Peter, and I know you'll have views on this as well, how does this all look to the people of this country?
Totally.
Well, I think in one respect, people may be saying, hang on a minute, you know, our politics isn't there to be stitched up by a few people in Westminster.
Yeah.
What do voters, what are people going about the day life?
And it's not even just them, Patrick. I want to play you this clip actually from Graham Stringer, the Labour MP. Now, of course, he has been pretty vocal against Starmer. He's on the right of the party. He's not exactly a mainstream person, but he always has things worth listening to. I asked him a bit earlier on in the programme, I said, Patrick, are you going to campaign for Andy Burnham in this by-election? This is what he said. You're a Greater Manchester MP. Are you going to knock doors in Makerfield and say vote for Andy Burnham?
I've campaigned in most of the by-elections in the north of England in my life. I would find it difficult to know what to say to people on the doorstep if they say, Andy and Josh have both abandoned us. One is the mayor. I wouldn't have an answer to that. So at the moment, I think my answer to that is no, because I don't support the decision those two friends have taken. It's fine enough for Josh to risk his own career or Andy to risk his own career, but to risk the Labour Party's representation in those two areas, I think is irresponsible.
Now, I'm not arguing, Patrick, that that represents mainstream opinion in the Labour Party, but what is absolutely clear is there is some consternation, not just from the people of Makerfield, not just the questions that are being raised here, but allegations of a kind of stitch-up here, actually, Patrick, and I wonder how that goes down, especially when people have so little faith and trust in politicians and the political process.
Well, that's clearly the risk, and I think Graham Stringer sets out there, you know, very honestly, the reaction that there will be in some quarters, I think, both in the Labour Party and more generally in that area, which is people feeling that their local MP has walked away. It looks like some kind of deal has been done. How will all of that be received by voters? I think in fairness, you'd have to say Andy Burnham is taking a big risk, and in some ways this is an audacious move because obviously he's giving up a role that he's been very successful at as Mayor of Manchester. He's taking the risk in doing that. So I think one can't be so unfair as to suggest that somehow this is just a stitch-up. He's putting himself forward for election. But I do concur with what Graham Stringer says, that I think this could create an unfortunate impression which will not help the Labour Party to reconnect with alienated voters in places like Makerfield.
Patrick, always worth listening to your great analysis of all of this. Thank you for joining us on the programme this evening. That's Patrick Diamond there, former Labour Policy Advisor. He's now an academic, one of my favourite analysts, particularly of Labour. I want to take a call now on the Farage story. Quite a few people getting in touch about that. One of them is Chris in Epsom, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Chris, you're very welcome to the programme. What do you make of this?
Hi, Peter. I'll comment on this, and I'd like to talk something about Starmer.
Sure, of course.
I'm a Reform voter, so cards on the table. I was at conference, and I also went to Reform for Veterans. I was talking to Nigel, and I saw his security team, and one Tier 1 operator, at least, possibly two, and two other guys as well. Now, if he's got a four-man team of that level, they'll do a 12-hour shift and switch out to another four-man team, right? Because the threat is so high around him, he would be constantly have four around him.
Yeah.
and that's not taking in that would cost £1 million a year.
Yeah, easily.
Right? Just those 8 men would cost him £1 million a year.
Yeah,
that's without taking into account his home, his children, his wife. You know, I admire him. I wouldn't have his job for all the tea in China.
I totally agree, by the way, with Andrew Rossendale that he should have taxpayer-funded security. The taxpayer-funded security should be given to people based on risk alone and nothing else. Now, the government will say, and the committee that does it will say, that the risk doesn't constitute that. I think it clearly does. I think they're wrong on that. But I suppose the final question I have on this particular bit, and I do want to ask you about Starmer, is: do you care about him being given a £5 million donation? Does anyone care? Is it an issue for you at all, Chris?
No, it's not an issue for me, but I do wish. And he said he took legal advice, but I do wish he had just said to him in the beginning, look, I'm taking £5 million. It's for the work I've done on Brexit and for my security going forward. And that would have been the end of it.
Okay. Quick word on Starmer, if you want to, Chris, and then I've got to go to a break, but go ahead.
Please, I have a different view to everybody else.
Okay.
Millipede kept quiet for a couple of weeks beforehand as it was all heating up. When Streeting went in and had his meet on the day of the cabinet meeting, he came out with a face like thunder because Starmer had backed him down. I think, because there's not just the left and the right of the Labour Party, you've got the globalists in the middle, which is Hermer, Starmer, Millipede and a few others. I think the stitch-up, I think it's already done and dusted. I think that despite Rayner's clever play of holding back that HMRC have cleared me till this morning, I think it'll be Miliband that gets the jojob.
Very interesting thought on that.
I think Starmer will tell his other globalists vote for Miliband.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Really interesting perspective on that. We'll go to a break now, and then there is a lot of politics around today, of course, but I want to talk about 2 stories that have been very interesting too. This is a magistrate dialing into a Reading court case from Portugal. He's done this for a number of years, apparently. And a horrendous story about an imam, a person of real trust in a Muslim community who raped and sexually abused women and girls, who's been jailed quite rightly for life. Stay with us.
so down! When you get the offer to be the voice of a sheep...
Yes, you can only dream, really.
Kelly Riley and Cole Hauser! Well, how much of Rip does your husband in real life have about him?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's a man.
He's Kirsty and Phil!
Can we talk about one other thing?
We can talk about loads of things. It's an interview.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Philip Kisley joins me now, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Two crazy stories, Philip, for you to have a look at. One, both concerning but in very different ways. The second one I would argue a bit more serious. That's about Abdul Halim Khan, a horrible man, an imam who raped and sexually abused women and girls, who's been jailed quite rightly for life. But tell us first about a magistrate dialing into a Reading court case from Portugal. This is taking working from home to a mad new level, if you ask me, Philip.
It's crazy, and it very definitely breaks the rules, because working from home, he was allowed to work from home after the pandemic, but those rules ceased in 2022. So here is a man essentially convicting small petty criminals of breaking the rules and breaking the rules himself. Not only is he working from home when he's not supposed to, he's working from home from Portugal. Now, I don't know what the authorities, the Portuguese authorities, would think of someone, imposing British law in their territory. So that's one thing. But the other thing, Peter, is the guy that blew the whistle on this. And so this guy was working from home, working from Portugal. They knew this, but still they wouldn't do anything about it. And what happened was that they victimized the whistleblower. Now, this is about a culture, isn't it? One, yes. It's a laziness. Two, it's the fact that bad practice just produces more bad practice.
And you know, and I know as well, Philip, that there are going to be a load of criminals who say, hold on a second, this wasn't the right procedure. I want my conviction overturned.
Well, this is the final and big point. Are those convictions, are they going to be overturned now? What's going to happen? Because he was breaking the rules. He was breaking the rules of his own job. So all of this stuff, there are so many implications to this, but it's part of a broader culture, isn't it, that comes from lockdown, that comes from the end of COVID, which we have to come to terms with, because our society is fractured. Something's happened to us because of that, and we haven't really dealt with that yet. This idea of this laziness, this working from home, this idea, well, actually, I don't have to do what I'm supposed to do. Needs to be dealt with, because there are massive ramifications here, and it might be that all of these convictions can, as you say, to be overturned.
Tell us about this imam who raped and sexually assaulted women and girls as young as 12. The sentencing judge, Leslie Cuthbert, said that behind a public appearance of propriety and holiness, you took monstrous advantage of women who trusted you, all for your sexual satisfaction. You brazenly raped and sexually assaulted 7 females, both children and young women. Horrendous.
I'm just sick to death of hearing these stories of children being raped. There is something very, very wrong with our society. We are talking really here about an honour culture, aren't we? We are talking about women and children within a particular community that are massively vulnerable, because if we are talking about a culture that revolves around fear, that revolves around intimidation, and revolves around shame, there will always be victims. Now, I'm not saying that's the whole community by any stretch of the imagination. But what I am saying is that community leaders, people like this person, this monster here, should not be in positions of massive power. We know, for example, Peter, that there is negotiated policing in some Muslim communities, and the gatekeeper there is the community leader.
Indeed, and they're in a position of incredible trust and probably far too much trust, certainly when it comes to negotiated policing. When there are some people in this scumbag's case, someone who got away with horrendous things, abusing that trust.
Yeah, and what we have to do is get beyond this fear, this cultural sensitivity, and put safeguarding first, regardless of what the community makeup is, and regardless of how central religious sensitivities are.
Completely agree with all of that. Philip, thank you. A shorter interview than I would have liked. Sorry, we're under a bit of time pressure this evening, but I do appreciate everything that you contribute to the programme. Philip Kisley there, wise words. He's a senior fellow at the New Culture Forum. What do you make of what he was saying there and all the other stories we have this evening? We're going to speak to Dave Wooding, the former editor of the Sunday Express, in a few minutes for his analysis. I want to get yours too in the next hour. More time for calls. 0344 499 1000. Get on the blower. Let me know what you think. Stay with us here on Talk.
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you so much for your company on the Evening Exchange. There's so much to talk about. David Wooding, the former editor of the Sunday Express, is coming next with his expert analysis on everything that's happening with Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, Keir Starmer, Andy Burnham, Josh Simons, James Murray. James Murray's been named the new Health Secretary. There's so much that's happening within the Labour Party at the moment. It has big implications for our country, and there's going to be a by-election in Makersfield. If you're in that constituency, if you're in the Wigan area, I'd love to hear from you, or maybe you're in Greater Manchester and you want to talk about Andy Burnham potentially giving up his role as Mayor of Greater Manchester and becoming an MP again, and perhaps leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister. So much to discuss. 0344 499 1000. We've had some remarkable interviews this evening, some great calls as well. Graham Stringer, the MP, saying that he will not be campaigning for Andy Burnham. Your calls, text, tweets and voice notes are always very valued on this programme, and there's a bit more time, as you may know, in the 9 o'clock hour to get through. So if you do want to have a chat, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell, send me a voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring on the main number 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk. Just before I speak to David Wooding, I just want to address something that Lorraine has sent in. She's a very, very valued contributor. She disagrees with me on this occasion, and that's fine. And on my show, we disagree without being disagreeable. But she sent in a message. I want to read it out. And Lorraine, I want to reply directly to you. And I know that a number of people are going to want to hear my reply to it, I would imagine, and indeed what you have to say. So Lorraine has said on Nigel Farage, and there is this question today about his £5 million donation that he's received. There is a parliamentary inquiry that was announced yesterday, and he was asked about this by Harry Cole, my colleague. He is the editor-at-large of The Sun. He is a presenter of Never Mind the Ballots, and Harry Cole Saves the West, and he asked Nigel Farage about this. We're going to play that clip a little bit later on and ask David Wooding what he thinks about it. But this is what Lorraine says. I find the constant media frenzy around Farage really quite disgusting. The recent hounding surrounding what he may or may not have said decades ago went on for months and months. Talk and you, Peter, were just as guilty. Yet deliberate proven lies and scandals by other politicians such as Polanski, Rayner, Reeves, Reynolds and Starmer make the headlines for a day or two and the media moves on. It is not only disgraceful behaviour but actually very dangerous. Farage battering has become so entrenched that the electorate don't care. The media need to understand that the concerted campaign to destroy Reform UK isn't working. Last Thursday is proof. Lorraine, I think there's something in that, but I would be very sceptical that anything I have said or any presenter on talkTV, for example, has said, has done anything other than to hold Nigel Farage to account or to give him an opportunity to give his views on the issues of the day. We're not Reform UK activists. We're not activists for any political party. We're independent journalists who report the news and who discuss the news. And if Nigel Farage has a question mark over a £5 million donation, we're going to ask about that. And indeed, he himself put himself up for an interview on that, and his people decided they would do that with Harry Cole this evening, and we've been talking about that throughout the evening. If there are allegations, I want to ask questions about them, whether it's Nigel Farage, whether it's Rachel Reeves, whether it is Angela Rayner or whoever. We report and discuss what is going on at the time. When it comes to Nigel Farage's alleged anti-Semitism, which he completely denies from many years ago, that's an impossible question to answer. What happened when, who said what to whom, and The Guardian went on and on about that and reported that. If Nigel Farage is going to be the next Prime Minister of this country, and the polls would indicate that he is, we need to hold him and every other politician, and Nigel Farage would want us to do this. He wants us to test him. He submits himself to interviews. I've interviewed him. Many other presenters on this station have interviewed him. And we make sure that we hold all politicians to account, no matter who they are, whether we agree with them or whether we don't. There are many things that Nigel Farage says that I think are sensible and I agree with, but I want to make sure through my journalistic endeavour that he and people like Andrew Rossendale, who I was interviewing earlier on in the programme, are, as many people believe, the right people to run this country. And I want to make sure that we can't just be Reform FM. We have to be an organisation that holds everybody, every politician, no matter where they're coming from, every public figure, civil servants, people in HMRC, whoever they are, to account. And I'm going to continue to do that. And Lorraine, I hope you'll be with me for the journey, because you're a very valued contributor. And every text, or almost every text that you send us, we read out, because you speak a lot of common sense. So thanks for your message. I think we agree on some of it. We disagree on other bits of it, and I hope that answers your questions within it. So thank you, Lorraine, and I hope you stay with me right through until 10 o'clock and indeed in the future. Right then, I want to speak to David Whitting now. He is the former editor of the Sunday Express. David, what a day. I mean, hard to know where to start. Let's start at the beginning with Angela Rayner and what she was saying and the fact that she has been cleared. I think that word is doing quite a lot of hard work, actually, in her HMRC investigation. We'll hear what she had to say in just a second, but let's hear your view first.
Well, it was a very carefully timed announcement this morning, wasn't it, Peter? About 6:30 this morning.
That's right.
A pre-recorded interview with a TV journalist. Yeah, let's be clear. Angela Rayner was the Secretary of State for Housing when she bought a new £800,000 apartment and for some reason didn't pay the stamp duty, which amounted to £40,000. Now, this was brought to people's attention by none other than journalists, back to what you were saying before about journalists holding politicians to account. And as such, she was investigated and it was found, not that she was in the clear, but that she did in fact owe this money, and she has now paid that money.
One thing quite a lot of people haven't said is she paid the money. If she was in the clear, she wouldn't have to pay any money.
Absolutely.
She had to pay £40,000. She did something wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And the phrase you used, the word cleared is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It is indeed, because she hasn't been cleared. She's been asked to pay the money. She's paid the money. And because she's paid the money, the HMRC have said, thank you very much, we'll take no further action, which is often what happens in all sorts of things that go on in life. They were happy to get the money off her, have banked it, decided not to make her pay any interest or pay a fine for missing it, and they've just wiped the slate clean for her.
Let's hear what she's
in the clear.
Let's hear what she had to say to ITV News. This is Angela Rayner.
Can you just tell me what the decision was from HMRC as you understand it?
Well, I welcome HMRC's conclusion, and they've said that there wasn't any wrongdoing and that I didn't try to avoid paying tax, or I wasn't careless in the way in which I conducted myself. At the time when I was in government and this came to my attention that there could have been tax owed, I was really shocked about that because I'd taken advice and I've never wanted to avoid paying my tax. And for me, that was the most distressing thing, is that people felt that I was tax dodging or trying to set up trusts to avoid tax, or being careless by not taking the appropriate advice. And HMRC have concluded that isn't the case.
Unsurprisingly, she was also asked by ITV News about whether she wanted to be Prime Minister. This is what she said.
Would you like to lead that team? Would you want to be Prime Minister?
I want to deliver as part of the team. And I've always said that it is a team effort. It's not one person, it's not a presidential situation. We all have to pull together to deliver that.
But would you want to lead the team? Because the team does have to have a leader. Would you want to be leader?
We do have to have a leader, and we've got a leader, and I'm not going to go into hypotheticals, but...
So you're not ruling out potentially taking over as leader?
But I have said that we have to do better, and we have to drive forward that change. I did that in government. I was very successful. I brought in the Employment Rights Act. They said we couldn't do it in 100 days. We did. We had our detractors from it, and we still delivered it.
We're talking in the abstract, though, really, aren't we? We're not getting to the nub of what's really going on right now in the Labour Party, which is that you're split down the middle. Some people say the Prime Minister should go. Some say he should stay. You're not really telling me what you think.
No, what's happening in the Labour Party at the moment is we've just had a severe beating off the electorate, and our ministers, our cabinet members, our Prime Minister and our members and our voters are saying things have to change.
And some people say change the leader.
Well, some people are saying that. But what I'm saying is the delivery of what we promised the electorate is the most important thing that we need to be concentrating on at the moment.
So no leadership challenge?
I want us to pull together.
James Murray is the new Health Secretary. He's been very loyal to Keir Starmer. So is the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillips, and she had this to say today.
Prime Minister has my full support, and I'm really sorry to see Wes go. He has been a brilliant Health Secretary. He's done a fantastic job, and we see that today with the NHS waiting list numbers that are really encouraging and what people want to see. But I fundamentally disagree with the position he's taken. I'm sad that he's gone, but I think this is now a chance for us to pause, take a breath as a party and try and draw a line under all of this.
try and draw a line under all of this. How likely is that to happen, David?
Well, it isn't, is it? I mean, we've got so many elements in this now. We've got Wes Streeting, who has quit the government. He hasn't, it seems, got the number of MPs, 81, that he needs to mount a challenge. But you've got Angela Rayner there, who has now carefully timed the announcement that she has paid the £40,000, and to use her phrase, she has been cleared. And then you've got Andy Burnham now saying he wants to stand in this seat in Makerfield, where an MP has stood down to allow him to do so. So this isn't going to go away anytime soon. The moving and the manoeuvrings and the plottings will be going on ever for weeks now.
Yeah.
I mean, the big sadness of this, Peter, is that people elected Labour because they wanted an end to the circus of the Conservatives, the chaos, constantly plotting and undermining their leadership. They brought down 3 prime ministers there in as many years, and they wanted a bit of stability and people getting on with the job. And now, after less than 2 years, we've got even worse. We've got a leadership attempted coup, which is, if the other one was a psychodrama, this is amateur dramatics, because it just hasn't worked at all.
What happens to Wes Streeting now, actually? Because there is a suggestion he may not even run, may not even challenge to be Labour leader. He hasn't got the 81 votes publicly anyway. And if Andy Burnham makes it back, a lot of what-ifs there, of course, it may be curtains for Streeting.
Well, it could be. Another theory is that the 3 of them, Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting and Andy Burnham, are in a sort of loose pact together. Wes Streeting, this is a speculation. Wes Streeting, knowing he can't get the support of the party because it is to the left, and he is more centre left. Angela Rayner, knowing that she probably has not got what it takes to be a leader, and that Andy Burnham being the favourite. So those 2 pivot behind Andy Burnham, they get him back in, make way for him, and then they get plum jobs in the new Burnham administration. That's a reasonable theory, Peter.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Of course, there's so much up in the air. What's interesting about Makerfield as well, David, I don't know if you were watching earlier on, but I spoke to Graham Stringer, the Labour MP, who said that he isn't even going to be canvassing, isn't going to be campaigning for Andy Burnham in Makerfield if Andy Burnham is the candidate, because he feels this is such a stitch-up. And this frustration within Labour, there's so many different views in Labour at the moment, and this one from Graham Stringer, I'd love your thoughts on this. Let's just see this clip. You're a Greater Manchester MP. Are you going to knock doors in Makerfield and say vote for Andy Burnham?
I've campaigned in most of the by-elections in the north of England in my life. I would find it difficult to know what to say to people on the doorstep if they say, Andy and Josh have both abandoned us. One is the mayor. I wouldn't have an answer to that. So at the moment, I think my answer to that is no, because I don't support the decision those 2 friends have taken. It's fine enough for Josh to risk his own career or Andy to risk his own career, but to risk the Labour Party's representation in those 2 areas, I think is irresponsible.
What do you make of that, David?
It makes a very valid point there, Peter, because first of all, it's not a given that the new mayor of Manchester will be a Labour mayor, because Reform have done really well in that area, in Andy Burnham's own backyard. And the area where Andy Burnham is standing to be an MP, or he wants to stand to be an MP, Makerfield, round the edges of Wigan, Ashton and Makerfield, Bryn, Garswood, all round there, all the area where Andy was brought up. The Wigan Council elected 22 Reform councillors out of 24 in the recent elections only a week ago. So he's really going into Red Wall Labour territory where Reform is making massive inroads. So he may well, in fact, lose the seat for Labour. This is a worst case scenario, of course, lose the seat for Labour and lose the mayoralty in Manchester for Labour as well. So you could end up with a Reform mayor of Manchester, and a new Reform MP, and that then throws the whole job into chaos, even more chaos. Of course, this is the worst case scenario. I mean, you would think with a 5,000 majority, Andy Burnham should be able to win that because of his popularity and he's well known. Nevertheless, it's not a given, and he shouldn't take that for granted. He'll have to work hard.
Let me ask something completely out there. Could the net result of this be that actually, in theory, Andy Burnham doesn't win that by-election, Reform UK do really well, but by that stage it's all kind of gone away? Maybe people think, actually, maybe Starmer just stays where he is. I mean, is that completely out there, David?
That's a possibility. It's quite clear that Starmer won't lead the Labour Party into the next election. I mean, another possibility is that Andy Burnham wins and does some kind of stitch-up with the Prime Minister. We'll give you another year to get your legacy sorted out, and then you will have an orderly handover. Who knows?
Listen, thank you very much, David Wooding there. Always worth listening to his analysis there, former editor of the Sunday Express. Thanks to everybody who's been in touch as well. Lots of people, lots of different opinions. Penny says, good evening, Peter. Good evening, Penny. At the end of the day, they're all taking quite large amounts of money, as well as so-called gifts from people. Nigel Farage is no different to the rest of them. David Northamptonshire says, Peter, your comment about being a political nomad, I think I said politically homeless perhaps, but it's the same thing. I think that resonates with a lot of people at the moment. A lot of people feel they've been let down by the political class and are now trying to find out which way to turn. Well done, great show, says Dave. Thank you. Leslie says, now Streeting is gone, who's looking after our NHS? Well, it's James Murray. He is the new health secretary. He was the chief secretary to the Treasury. Ernie says, I'd like to thank the MP for Makerfield for giving up a seat to Reform, and if any other disillusioned Labour MPs who are not happy with the way the country is being run and can't wait 3 years for an election, please feel free to do the same. It will be much appreciated by the British public, says Ernie. Paul is in Australia, always good to have viewers and listeners right around the world, and says, how screwed are Labour? What is the cost to do this by-election and the cost of mayoral election? Labour wasting public money again. They didn't care. It's not their money. Neil says Labour are putting Gary Neville forward as their candidate for mayor if Burnham steps down. That's not confirmed. It's sort of just a bit of speculation, and Gary Neville hasn't said anything about this. But Neil says if they think an ex-United player has a chance of getting elected, then half of Manchester support City. They are deluded. Typical Labour. No idea, says Neil. Steve says we are basically mirroring America during the Biden years. An incompetent leader, open borders, two-tier justice, dangerous wokeness and lawfare. Just look at how Hunter Biden's laptop was ignored, but Trump raided. The same is happening here to Nigel. Just to say, Hunter Biden's laptop was something I was reporting on before a lot of other people were. Mark says, how nice if the Conservatives returned the favour to Reform and stood no candidate after Burnham. Labour have left themselves exposed by hubris. And Keith says, could someone please tell me what Burnham actually brings as an MP, let alone PM? Is it buses, says Keith in Nottingham? I do think, I've said this before, I think there's a lot of myth around Andy Burnham. I think there's a lot of people who think he's marvellous. I'm not sure there is a record there behind. I think he was a very average health secretary. He failed to become Labour leader twice. But as we've seen over many, many years, people's political fortunes can, of course, change dramatically. Just ask Rishi Sunak, just ask Theresa May, just ask Nigel Farage. Lots more to discuss. We'll take your calls as well here on Talk. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Grace is in London and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Grace, I think it's Nigel Farage you want to talk about.
Yeah, I get the impression from the various pundits and experts who've discussed this that he probably should have done more than he has done to be clear about this donation.
I mean, he says he's done nothing wrong.
Well, yeah, of course he does. But he has, more than most politicians, made the claim that he is on the side of Judeo-Christian values. And if you're going to be on the side of Judeo-Christian values, you need to have a degree of humility, and it's really fundamental. And this is true for me too. I need to be better at this than I am. To be able to say, I was wrong about this, or I didn't do the best I could have done at this, and I've
heard him say that before. He would argue, I'm not here to speak for Nigel Farage, but his view would be that, look, someone gave me this money, it was for my personal security, which I need. It happened before I was an MP. In fact, he wasn't even leader of Reform UK or the Brexit Party or whatever when it happened. Therefore, what's the issue? Parliamentary Standards Inquiry might say it should have been declared. I do agree with you that it is a strange thing, if this is what you think, Grace, to get £5 million donation. I mean, I think that's a heck of a lot of money. But nonetheless, it'll be interesting to see what the Parliamentary Standards Inquiry says. I'm not sure he's done anything wrong.
It'll definitely be interesting to see what they say. I mean, a lot of people have raised that other politicians, including the Prime Minister, have received gifts and things like that.
But when they were in office.
Yeah, but I mean, Farage is claiming that this is a reward for campaigning for Brexit, so it's still very political. If we're saying that you can receive that much money for doing something political, that still feels to me
but at that
like
stage, I can't remember exactly when this was, but I think I'm on reasonably solid ground when I say that he wasn't a politician at the time, and it looked as if he had stood down. Now, look, he's come back on various occasions, he's led various parties at various times, but he may well have genuinely thought, right, my career as a politician's over, I've delivered Brexit, good night Vienna, off I go, into the sunset for my well-earned retirement, and this person who I know has very kindly given me this money to deal with my personal security, which is going to be an issue for life. It's unusual, but I don't think it's wrong necessarily. And I know what you mean about the humility. Most politicians aren't very humble, and they've got to have the self-confidence, some would say arrogance, to say, I'm better than everybody else. I'm the wonder on the country.
I don't think we necessarily want arrogance. I think, and again, this is something that applies to me too. I think all of us need to be able to have humility to admit where we've made mistakes and to be sorry. But I don't want politicians just to be bold and arrogant. I know that far too many aren't humble, but it's particularly that Farage keeps saying he's on the side of Judeo-Christian values. So he's holding himself to a higher standard, and he's not actually demonstrating those values. And I'm not trying to say anything about whether or not Brexit was, I'm not criticising Brexit in itself, but if he's going to make the claim that he got this money because he campaigned for Brexit, that does sound to me to be very political. And I'm also, dare I say it, struggling to believe that he desperately needed more money to hire a bodyguard. He must be making quite a bit from his various media roles and such like. I wouldn't.
Well, I mean, and the thing is, you know, that is all declared now, Grace. So listen, it's fine to talk about it and it's fine to ask those questions, but it'll be interesting to see what the Parliamentary Standards Inquiry says. Grace, thank you for your call. Let's play a couple of voice notes. Anna, first of all.
I don't care whether it's Angela Rayner, West Streeting. I don't care if Andy Burnham walks across the Mersey. I don't want any of them. And I suspect neither do the silent majority, who are no longer prepared to be silent. So this is just a charade. We want them gone and we will no longer tolerate them.
Thank you, Anna. Peter has a voice note too.
Isn't there some way by law that this government can be stopped from doing all this stuff they're doing? Because it just seems a deliberate destruction of this country. And now all these underhand tricks by whatever's going on to change a mayor here into an MP, get an MP into Parliament. It's all underhand, isn't it? It's all dirty, filthy tricks from the left. Dirty, stinking, filthy tricks. I'm fuming. We need a general election now.
There's nothing illegal about what they do, and we can't stop the government doing what they're doing because they have a mandate to do so. It's called democracy. And listen, you may not like it, Peter. There's a lot about this government I don't like either. But the good thing about this country is that we change governments, we change MPs, we change councils without, you know, a drop of blood being shed. And not to get too high and mighty about it, but you know, the point of democracy is that people disagree and the world continues to turn and there aren't battles. So listen, I think Labour have a big case to answer. They're going to have a big case to answer in Makerfield by-election. I think the people of Makerfield are going to be it'll be fascinating to see what so many journalists will be heading up there right now, talking to the people there, what they're going to do and what Reform UK does as well, what the Conservatives do and the Greens. Really, really interesting. Just on Nigel Farage, spokesman for Reform UK, says this was a personal gift, unrelated to politics. The state provides no security for Nigel. This is well documented. I think we've made those points through the programme as well. Dave is in Essex and has some thoughts on Keir Starmer. Dave, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, thanks for taking my call. I'd just like to say, if I've read Keir Starmer the way I think I've read him, not to say that I'm not a supporter of him really, but if I've read him correctly, I think rather than let the Jekylls play dice for his remains, I think he would take this to the country and say, no, I'm not you know, going to let you kick the crown around. If you don't want me, well, then let's see what the country says. And I think he's going to declare a general election and put it to the country and just say quite simply, you know, back me or sack me.
Although I don't think it's good. I disagree with you, Dave. I don't think he'll call a general election, but there may well be a Labour leadership contest, and that's just Labour Party members, and they're obviously not representative of this country.
Well, I just think Keir Starmer is of the mindset that I think he's a very stubborn man, and I don't think he's going to be. I mean, I must give him credit for standing up to Trump and keeping us out of this Middle Eastern debacle. I never thought I'd agree with Keir Starmer, but he reminds me of Harold Wilson, who said no to Johnson about Vietnam. And
I don't think Iran is Vietnam. I think they're two very, very, very different conflicts. Are they not, Dave?
The way he's standing up to the Americans, you know, I mean, and you know, they can be quite forceful.
He stood up to an American president, Dave, who says he's no Churchill and says that he needs to learn from the king. I mean, the special relationship is in dire straits, partially because of Keir Starmer.
Well, let's end on this. I fall back on Rudyard Kipling, who says, if you can keep your head while all around are blaming you, you'll be a man.
Do you think that's what Keir Starmer has done? He's kept his head?
I think so.
Okay.
I think, and I hope he does, you know, because I think a lot of this is media hysteria. I'm not blaming anybody in particular,
sure,
but I just think we're whipped up into a frenzy, and the general public is being led by the nose, who, on the whole, are a very low information crowd. And I just think that, you know, things should settle down. And I must say, if I was Keir Starmer, I'd let it fall where it falls, and I'd stick to my guns. I must say,
okay.
My choice of Prime Minister would be Rupert Lowe, by the by. But you know, as far as Starmer is concerned, I admire him for his courage.
Okay, Dave, thank you. A different perspective there. We love to hear them. So thank you to Dave. Joanna says, yes, Cardi P, Labour have a mandate, but everything in the King's speech was not in the manifesto or wanted by the voters. Very, very good point, Joanna. Leslie says, it came to light about Rayner's tax in September 2025. Why is it taking so long for her to admit it was wrong? Well, that's a very good point as well. Dee says, I think you're a genuine unbiased journalist, but those who point the finger at Farage are outraged because he has dared to state the obvious and ignores sacred cows and breaches taboos. Sorry, I can't think of any more metaphors, says Dee. Should I interest you in a punt? Starmite, love him or hate him, says Dee. Oh, I really don't like Marmite. Reform will need Lords to get anything done. Another good point. Response to Grace, hear you to say that he is not telling the truth and sticking to his Christian values. Grace the Doubter, says Donna. Well, I don't think Grace was saying that Nigel Farage was not telling the truth. She was simply saying that humility is something that she doesn't really think that he has in great degree. And I made the point that maybe a lack of humility is a good thing in a politician, because you've got to say, I'm the person to do this. Helen in Knutsford says, Angela Rayner knew she had to pay stamp duty. She had Rachel Reeves breathing down her neck. She had all the information at her fingertips. She tried to get away with it, but she's had to pay now because she was found out. She's finished as far as I am concerned. She's been proven to have been in the wrong. Another person says Angela Rayner has got where she is not because she is particularly bright, but because she can talk her way into and out of things. What we have seen is a master manipulator. They all do it. They obfuscate whatever you ask them. Rayner didn't say she was or wasn't innocent, but she had been cleared. Actually, she'd cleared her debt. Just manipulation of words. That is a really good point. Angela Rayner has not been cleared here. If she was cleared by HMRC, they would have said, Angela, you do not owe us £40,000. You've done the right thing. She did something wrong. She broke the law. She paid the £40,000 and they said, right, that's fine. Thank you very much. Off you go. And there are different graduations within this. I know this. I was investigated by HMRC for a year, and I know that, and in the end they worked out that I owed them, I think, £152 or something. I mean, it was a complete waste of time, but nonetheless, they can fine you if you've done something seriously wrong. They can say that it was careless or reckless and give you a small fine or a bit of interest on what you should have paid in the first place, or they can fine you huge amounts of money. Now, Angela Rayner's got away with well, not got away, but she's been found not to have been careless or reckless, just simply that she didn't do the right thing. She's paid the 40 grand, but that's not being cleared. I was not cleared. I had to pay the 152 quid. If they said you don't have to pay the 152 quid, then I would have been cleared. Angela Rayner was not cleared, and this narrative and this idea is wrong. Ernie says, I understand Nigel was paid in cryptocurrency, which keeps growing in value, which is a good move so that he can still pay for his security well after he's finished in politics. After all that has happened to him and the other politicians, I think it's a very thoughtful gift. Dean says, you're so wrong. Starmer has no mandate for ID cards, no mandate to reverse Brexit or to freeze old people by taking money off them. Martin in Aberdeenshire says, one aspect not looked at this during Starmergate is the misuse of public money. The salaries drawn by these Labour MPs to basically fight their internal battles. This should be looked at by public accounts and, if necessary, surcharges applied. Loads more to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. Get your call in, 0344 499 1000. Rachel Conliffe from the New Statesman's coming up. She always has interesting and worthwhile things to listen to in regard to the Labour Party and everything else. We'll hear what she has to say in just a second. She's a cat person too. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots of messages coming in on Twitter as well. Thanks to everybody who has sent them. Let me just read this one out from Amy Dodd, who says, wouldn't it be funny if Andy Burnham lost to a Reform candidate? How sweet would that be? Really put the mockers on things, wouldn't it? Another Amy says, a lot of MPs and others are saying Andy Burnham is the one to replace Starmer. What happens if he doesn't win the by-election? We'll get into that in a second with Rachel Cunliffe. Seb says, Burnham will probably win the by-election. Already Reform are demanding Conservatives don't stand. Yeah, we heard that from Andrew Rossendale a little bit earlier on here in the studio. No doubt they'll find another deadbeat candidate like Matt Goodwin to screw it up and then play the victim. Tedious, says Seb. I'm not sure Matt Goodwin is deadbeat, but he certainly didn't do as well as they would have wanted him to do in Gorton and Denton. Katie says your constituent, Josh Simons' constituents are being used, and hopefully they will realise that Reform will win. And thank you to TYY, who says, I've only just seen you're on late, Peter. Is this now a regular evening show? It is indeed. I am on between 7 and 10, so you're very, very welcome to watch the show, listen to the show, whatever you do, whether it's DAB Plus radio, your smart speaker, YouTube, your connected device, your telly, whatever it is, you're very welcome to contribute and to watch and to listen. And it's always good to hear from lots of people, including Bernadette, who says just because Wigan has been voting Labour for years and years because their father's uncles and Auntie Mary voted Labour, no more Labour in Wigan, get the lot out, she says on text. Lots of sentiments, and Rachel Cunliffe is with me to make sense of this all. She's the associate political editor of the New Statesman. Rachel, great to talk to you. So much has changed. So much has changed in the last week. What a day exactly. But so what a few days.
Well, it was a few days in which not a lot happened. We spent basically all of yesterday watching the King's speech, but also watching for Wes Streeting to make his move. And the Health Secretary did indeed resign this morning, although they didn't get the first news of the day. The first news of the day went to Angela Rayner, resolving her HMRC tax matter and paying her unpaid tax, and basically saying she could be back in the game due to that. Wes Streeting then resigned. However, didn't launch his leadership challenge, but did send a pretty brutal letter to the Prime Minister. And then just at the end of the day, we did have an MP agree to stand down and pave the way for Andy Burnham to get back into Westminster. So drama, drama, drama.
Drama, drama, drama indeed. Where is Keir Starmer at the moment politically? What do you think? And could the net result of this all be that he actually remains Prime Minister for a lot longer than some people might think? I mean, I've heard all sorts of theories. I've heard a deal will be struck up which will end up with Andy Burnham as Prime Minister, Angela Rayner as Deputy Prime Minister, Keir Starmer as Foreign Secretary, Wes Streeting as Chancellor. I mean, there are a heck of a lot of what-ifs in all of this, but I mean, I'm not asking you to necessarily predict things, but what's your feeling about where things go, particularly in the next few days?
Well, there's a lot of rumours swirling around. Let's start there. Let's also keep in mind that while the list of Labour MPs who've called on Starmer to resign or set out a timetable for resigning is growing. I think it's up to 97 at the moment. But there's also a list of Labour MPs who have publicly backed the Prime Minister, and that was over 100. So to say there were different views within the Labour Party is very important. However, that said, given the news that we got in the afternoon, evening about Josh Simons standing aside to allow Andy Burnham to get a seat back in Westminster, we've also got a tracker on the New Statesman website, if you want to check it out, of Labour MPs who have said that Burnham should not be blocked from standing. This is in contrast to, in February, the Gorton and Denton by-election, when Labour's National Executive Committee made the decision that he couldn't stand as the sitting Mayor of Greater Manchester, and they weren't going to let him be the candidate. So you've now got growing calls from Labour MPs who are going, we need to have this guy at least in the context. And interestingly, they're not just coming from the soft left, Burnham's faction. They're coming from across the party, including MPs who had previously been close to Wes Streeting or who had backed the Prime Minister. So I think the mood in the Labour Party right now is there needs to be a contest, and Andy Burnham needs the chance to stand in that contest.
A lot of my viewers and listeners seem to be really annoyed that this appears to be some sort of stitch-up. Look, there is obviously democracy here, but you nonetheless have someone who's been an MP for less than 2 years. He's been a minister. He's been marred in scandal involving some of our very, very good and well-respected journalistic colleagues, Gabriel Pogren and Harry York, for example, who were smeared completely incorrectly by a ludicrous and very unfair report. Then you're in a situation where Josh Simons stands down, Andy Burnham stands. He may or may not win. I mean, if reform, I've had Andrew Rossendale in the studio here this evening saying they're throwing the kitchen sink at this. And if you look at some of the numbers recently, we may well have, in theory, another Reform MP, maybe even a Reform MP and a Greater Manchester Mayor as well. Does Andy Burnham actually, sorry, before you respond to that, does Andy Burnham have to stand down as Greater Manchester Mayor to run as an MP?
No, he can run as an MP without standing down. If he wins as an MP to take his seat in Westminster, then he would need to stand down as Mayor.
Okay. And on Josh Simons and on that sort of jiggery-pokery and manoeuvring, what do you make of Reform's chances in Makerfield?
Well, I think it's really interesting because all of this week there's been speculation about where Andy Burnham could potentially find a seat. And you've had a number of Labour MPs come out and say, not mine, I'm hanging on to mine, thank you very much. If you were to make a list of the seats in the sort of wider Manchester area that he could go for, this seat is not top of that list. It's a hard seat to win. The majority is about 6,000. Reform came second. If you look at the various pollsters, MRP predictions for the next general election, Reform are on track to win that seat. It is not going to be easy. Now, obviously, Andy Burnham is untarnished by some of the unpopularity that has affected the Labour government. He's got a strong personal brand, and clearly he believes he could win it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be going for it. But yes, expect a very, very strong Reform effort there, and also potentially expect an effort from the Greens. You know, Zach Polanski didn't run in Gorton and Denton. Imagine what would happen if he entered the race.
Speaking of Zach Polanski, I'm sure you're familiar with this story this evening about him, when he said, you've got my vote to a local mayor, but actually wasn't even registered to vote. What do you make of that?
I just think it's astonishing to sort of admit that you're asking other people to vote for you and you haven't personally voted. I don't know, maybe it has something to do with his council tax situation, his house vote, where he was or wasn't registered. But, you know, if I were leader of a party asking for other people's votes, I wouldn't be admitting that I hadn't voted myself.
You get the admin right, wouldn't you? He's a very curious character, a very strange character, and there are lots of different aspects of his leadership. The Greens, I'm sure, will run a candidate in Gorton and Denton. They haven't really got a chance, really. It seems to be, with the numbers that are there already, seems to be probably a straight Reform Labour fight. It's going to be box office, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not suggesting here that the Greens have a chance of winning, just that we saw in the local elections that vote splitting is a real thing, and it's happening. The electorate is fragmenting, and if the left were to be divided, then that would make the situation easier Reform, particularly if the Conservatives decided to stand aside and see what would happen. But, you know, going back to your listener, your viewer comments about this being a stitch-up, it is really interesting. Josh Simons is not an MP who is associated with the Andy Burnham soft left.
Well, he was a sort of cheerleader for Starmerism for such a long time, wasn't he?
He was a cheerleader for Starmer. He ran the Labour Together think tank, which is obviously the Morgan McSweeney think tank that engineered Keir Starmer's rise as Labour leader, obviously mired in a certain amount of scandal, as you alluded to there. So there were also questions about, you know, how this deal has been negotiated, perhaps what has been offered, and also, again, you know, questions about, was this the seat that Andy Burnham wanted? Would he perhaps have wanted an easier seat, and there wasn't an MP who was prepared to stand aside for him? So this is the race he's running in. That said, if he can win it, given that a lot of the odds are stacked against him, that is a very powerful message to go into Westminster with basically a mandate that says the country doesn't like Starmer, they're not too keen on Labour, but they do like me.
And look at me, I'm a winner. How surprised were you when Josh Simons announced he was standing down? I mean, he's perhaps not the best known MP necessarily, but as you say, I was very surprised that he was the person. I thought there were a lot of different candidates. He didn't seem to be on the radar of a lot of people that he would be the one who would fall on the sword.
No, he was nowhere near top of my list. Obviously, geographically, you are looking for an MP somewhere in the north and in the area surrounding Manchester. But no, he wasn't for all of those reasons. And he also, you know, prior to the scandal to do with Labour Together, he was considered a rising star in the party. You know, he was made a junior minister and somebody who was very keen, very ambitious to climb the ministerial ranks. So, yes, I was surprised about that. I am not surprised, though, that somebody has made the decision to stand aside for Burnham, because the pressure really was building this week, particularly with Wes Streeting deciding that he wasn't going to go for it today. I think there is a growing consensus in the Labour Party that there needs to be some action somewhere, and this is a course of action.
Rachel, speaking of your comments, I have one from Nat, who has contacted us from all the way from Tel Aviv in Israel, and says the million-dollar question, Peter, cats or politics? I'd like to ask you that question, Rachel.
Obviously cats.
Correct.
Absolutely every time.
Correct answer. Thank you very much for that superb and correct answer and all your other brilliant analysis this evening. That is Rachel Cunliffe there, who's Associate Political Editor of The New Statesman. Thanks to Ian as well in Essex, who says the country is going down the pan and all we have is a government that are just looking out for themselves, not the people who voted for them. I think people will now vote against Burnham just to show they will not be dictated to. Another person says if Andy Burnham gets this seat, he will always be the MP where it was rigged. Dan says, so he's going to be paid by the taxpayer as the mayor to run an election campaign for somewhere else. Lucky boy. Margaret says the money was a gift to Nigel Farage before he was leader of Reform, and it's great he uses it for security. That's Margaret in Birmingham. Alex in Cardiff says, quite right, Peter, you've always been informed and questioned all politicians the same, no matter which party you come from. Thank you, Alex. Mike in Darlington says, you are Reform FM. You speak nothing of Restore, and is the fastest growing party in history, and has the third biggest membership, says Mike in Darlington. It doesn't have the third biggest membership. It has the third biggest number probably of people on its mailing list. In terms of people who actually pay money to be a member of Restore Britain, that's just not the case, Mike, I'm afraid. And we have talked about Restore FM and Restore Britain, I should say, and we have interviewed many of their politicians at various times, so I'm afraid that's just not right. Michael says Reform UK has gone from being Starmer's biggest threat to his premiership to his biggest potential saviour. Oh, the irony. And a final one before the break from Keith, who says, I'm sure Farage already knows who the candidate will be for the upcoming by-election. It would be excellent to get Zia Youssef into Westminster, says Keith in Nottingham. Voice notes and calls and a chat with Petri Hoskin coming your way in just a second. Stay with us.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I want to take a couple of calls, but I also want to go on a bit of a voice note-a-thon and speak to Ash and read out 3 texts. Let's see if we can do that all in the next 6 minutes. Damon on Andy Burnham.
I think it's absolutely disgraceful how the Labour government is supposed to tell us that Andy Burnham will come in to Manchester and will be the MP, and we just have to suck it up and back him so he can go along and be Prime Minister. What did happen to democracy? Where's the democracy gone? Why are the British people being taken with absolute contempt, and that any government, past or present, can just think they can do what they want and the British electorate will just stomach for it? Don't they realise that Andy Burnham's going to have a proper fight on his hands? Because most of this area, including mine in Wigan, went to reform. This seriously needs sorting out now. This is past the joke where politicians just think they can do what they want. Where's all the old values gone, Peter?
Thanks, Damon. Martin?
Josh Simon making way for Andy Burnham is an insult to our democracy, and the arrogance of the Labour Party to think we're all that stupid, we're going to let them get away with it. Well, I think they're wrong on this one. For me, Starmer was a soft left Trojan horse who was put in there and elected on a manifesto of kind of OK socialist policies, but they all soon turned to a big pack of lies.
Thank you, Martin. Johnny?
I'll tell you where the mystique about Andy Burnham's come from. It's come from down south. It's come from the London sphere. Nobody up north that gives any credence whatsoever to Andy Burnham, honestly. If you look at the state of Manchester, he's no better than Sadiq Khan. He's a terrible mayor, and no one up here likes him.
Thank you for that, Martin. Let's hear from Johnny.
Believe me, he's not going to win there, because most people there, a lot of people there, are huge reform voters now. They've had it with Labour. They don't want them anymore. They're doing nothing for the working class, and they just want them gone. So yeah, I mean, this just highlights how stupid Labour are, really, doesn't it? That, you know, they really think the arrogance of them, that they think they can just throw someone in there and they're going to win. You know, they're going to win. It's just disgraceful. It's like they're taking the people there for granted.
Thank you, Johnny. Really appreciate that. Also, quite a number of texters. Can't get them all in, unfortunately, but Mark in Warwickshire says, I think they're setting the ground for a massive stitch-up in government. The plan is for Burnham to be PM, Rayner as Deputy, and Starmer Attorney General. The peerage in the House of Lords when it all implodes. A massive spanner in the works, though. Reform will win both seats. Very interesting thoughts there. And thank you to everybody who's contributed to the programme tonight. I want to talk to Ash about what's coming up on his programme with Andre. Hello, sir.
Yeah, all right, man. And we're going to carry on with loads of the stuff, but the rain attacks at the deal that doesn't add up. I mean, a lot of people who are tax experts are saying, well, this doesn't happen in the real world. There has to be some reason, like... and not carelessness, that gets you fined. The only way it can be is if your advisor tells you to do it and the advisor's got it wrong. But her legal advisor told her they weren't experts twice, and they even made an announcement, didn't they, at the time?
Yeah, they put it in the public.
She sort of tried to blame them after it. Yeah. So, you know, one rule for one rule for the other, as usual.
She wasn't cleared. I mean, she keeps saying she was cleared. She had to pay £40,000 because she should have paid it in the first place.
But it's very irregular that you don't pay the fine, about 7% or something. That's what the expert accountants are saying, unless there's a particular reason, and it doesn't seem to have been that.
So you're covering all of that on the show tonight?
We're doing that. We're doing the King's surprise visit. Surprise, surprise! He's gone for a shawarma in Golders Green. I wish I don't live far from there. I wish I was down there. I've told him the best place to go. But everyone was, you know, they're very patriotic. You know, you do a prayer for the royal family in the synagogue every Saturday.
Yes. And he's also a patron of the Community Security Trust as well. That's a recent thing that the King has taken on. So I think, you know, he is impartial, but he's nonetheless on absolutely the right side of the fight against anti-Semitism.
One of my prayer books for the synagogue on one of the festivals actually has Edward VIII in, and because he only lasted, it must have been printed at that time when he was just king for a bit, and there's a little flap of paper where they've stuck it in because they've already done the print run.
Oh, right. There we are. There's a post box in my part of London, actually.
Is there? You lucky fingers, they're rare now.
Edward VIII post box. There are only about 150 of them or something. There aren't very many at all.
Yeah, they're amazing. When you see an old post box, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah,
the
lovely.
old Victorian ones.
But that's an Edward VIII one. There really aren't very many of them.
They are very